Chapter 947. Then, he went to Song Yisher's Weibo. Song Yisher had only been back for a short period of time, but in less than a month, she had already gained 5 million fans. It was shocking. Song Yisher had just updated her Weibo with a group photo with Lady Qin and Chairman Qin. The caption read, "I was lucky enough to become a member of this family when I was 8 years old. Even after so many years, Daddy Qin and Mama Qin still treat me the same as before. I'm grateful for everything I have today." Then, the comment section was flooded with comments. "Goddess, you're so lucky. I'm so jealous of you. Sure. When are you going to give us some benefits? Send us a picture of you acting cute. I really want to see how our goddess looks like when she acts cute." Sure. Is that Cartier's latest bracelet on your wrist? Is it sold in China? Beauty song, you're the most well-mannered socialite I've ever met. I heard that you're a master of Chinese art. When are you going to show us your skills? Goddess, I always thought that you and President Qin were the perfect match. You've been living with the Qin family since you were 8 years old. You must have a lot of interesting childhood stories with President Qin. Can you tell us about them? Most of the comments were Song Yisher's fans. They liked her and thought that she was a good person. She was pretty, rich, highly educated, and a master of Chinese art. Most importantly, she was gentle and always posted some warm words. "I can't take it anymore. I want to throw up," Zhang Xiaowei said. "What's wrong? Is your stomach uncomfortable?" Hua Min really thought that she wasn't feeling well and almost brought her a trash can. It's not that I want to throw up. I just want to throw up when I see Song Yisher, that supreme bitch." Supreme bitch? Hua Min was a bit confused. It was the first time he heard this word. "I invented this word. It's the highest level of a scheming bitch. Does it match her personality?" Zhang Xiaowei asked. Hua Min smiled. She knew that if Zhang Xiaowei didn't like someone, she wouldn't say anything nice. Therefore, Zhang Xiaowei asked again with another account, "Since you have such a good relationship with the Qin family, and you call them your parents, why didn't Qin Chu marry you? Have you had enough?" Hua Min was bored by Zhang Xiaowei's scolding on Song Yisher's Weibo. "I just can't stand how pretentious she is. But aren't we also the type to act tough?" Hua Min asked with a smile. "How can that be the same? Both of us are low-key and appropriately pretentious. She's pretentious 24 hours a day without any blind spots. Moreover, her pretentiousness is so low. She thinks that no one can see her true face just because she's wearing a mask. She's really bad." Hua Min didn't say anything. She just sipped her flower tea quietly. Zhang Xiaowei went to Hua Min's Weibo to take a look. She had just posted a poem by Sangyang Jiatsua, and there were tens of thousands of comments below it. It was different from Song Yisher's. Most of the comments were probably scolding Hua Min. "You're confessing to Su Yu, aren't you? Shameless. Hua Min, how can you face your husband by doing this? You scumbag. Qin Chu has done so much for you, but you're indifferent. I really don't like you. Go ahead and cry if you want a divorce. What a pretentious woman. You're courting death." After reading it, Zhang Xiaowei was furious. She slammed the tablet on the small table beside her with a loud thud. "What the fuck? Are these anti-fans stupid? They don't know the truth, so why are they slandering you? How can they say that you're indifferent to Qin Chu's love? I'm speechless. If you don't care, why would you marry Qin Chu? If you don't care, why would you put aside your pride to beg for help when GK was in a crisis? You even put on smoky makeup and walked the red carpet like a clown. Are they blind that you're so protective of your husband? Ever since you got together with Qin Chu, you've had a lot of green tea bitches, right? First it was Zhang Linyue, and now it's Song Yisher. It's tiring enough for you to work and deal with those bitches at the same time. Damn it, these retarded fans are still slandering you." Chapter 948. Zhang Xiaowei really liked Hua Min's personality, so she wanted to be friends with her. One of the best things about being friends was that the person had to be real and not the two-faced type. At least Hua Min was real. Maybe it was because she was quick-witted, so she was calmer and more collected than others. But that didn't mean she was cold-blooded and heartless. All these years, she had sacrificed for her family and her brother, including taking care of Ning Ziyuan's feelings after breaking up with him, risking her life to save Wu Xiaoshua's child, risking her life to save the bleeding pregnant woman, risking her life to save Zhu Lingling from the nightclub. To Hua Min, she always knew what she was doing and never regretted it because that was her way of life. What touched Jiang Xiaowei the most was that she didn't care about the danger she was in to help Su Yu. Actually, if it were her, she wouldn't have dared to do that. But Hua Min was so brave in every decision she made. If Hua Min was afraid of tarnishing her reputation and acted like a coward, then Jiang Xiaowei would really look down on her. It was said that a man had to be brave enough to take responsibility for his actions, and it was the same for a woman. She had to be magnanimous and never let anyone down. This kind of Hua Min might be controversial and have a lot of black marks, but Jiang Xiaowei liked it. She truly admired Hua Min. In this world, there were many women who wore masks like Song Yishe, but there were very few who were as magnanimous as Hua Min. Song Yishe was common, but Hua Min wasn't. This was the most precious and rare thing. Song Yishe had a lot of friends. She even had a group of girlfriends, all of whom were rich heiresses. But she didn't have many close friends. Hua Min had very few friends, only Zhu Lingling and Jiang Xiaowei. But when she was in trouble, these two women would go through fire and water for her, because she was worth it. Xiaowei, calm down. It's really okay. I don't care what other people say. No matter what they say, it won't change the fact that I'm me. I'm Hua Min. I believe in my feelings for Qin Chu, and he understands. There's no need to say too much between us. Time will prove everything. Hua Min wore a loose-fitting short-sleeved shirt with a Winnie the Pooh logo on it. It was simple and cartoonish. She looked out the window. Her side profile without makeup was absolutely beautiful. Her facial features weren't particularly exquisite, but they were very recognizable. Hua Min, even I can't be as calm as you. I actually care about what other people think. After this incident, I was so worried about you that I even created a second account to scold Song Yishe. But you're right, all of this doesn't mean much. In the end, it all came to an end. You really don't have to care about those people who don't like you. They like you anyway, so they won't make you gain anything. Haha, you're right. Even if they like me, they won't make my life more brilliant. To me, people I don't care about are just passers-by. Hua Min put down her teacup and looked at Jiang Xiaowei with a faint smile. Actually, I'm curious. Have you ever complained about your background because of the hardships you've had in the past? Jiang Xiaowei knew that Hua Min had gone through a lot in the past, and it wasn't easy for her and Qin Chu to be together. To be honest, I used to be like this. I was young back then, so it was inevitable that I would complain when I encountered setbacks. But I don't anymore, because I realize that every decision I make now will affect my future. Some people are born with a good hand of cards, but they play them badly, such as Hua Yanyan. Some people are born with a bad hand of cards, but they work hard to improve, such as me. Haha. Then what kind of person am I? Jiang Xiaowei laughed. You were born with a good set of cards, and you play them well. This is the spring of Do Di Zhu. Haha, you're making fun of me. Jiang Xiaowei didn't care about her image and laughed out loud. Then, she sent Wei Liao a WeChat message and told him what Hua Min said. Wei Liao was silent for a long time, and then he replied, Then am I the farmer who played Do Di Zhu with you? I lost and was captured. Hua Min was about to get up and get Jiang Xiaowei a thin blanket, because he realized that it was a little cold outside the window. At this moment, his phone rang. Hello? Hua Min looked at the unfamiliar number and hesitated for a few seconds before answering. Hello, Hua Min. I'm Su Yu's mother. Lady Su's voice was as gentle as water. Chapter 949. Hello, Auntie Su. Hua Min was a bit surprised, but he still greeted Mrs. Su politely. Is it convenient for us to meet? Now. Yes. Lady Su nodded. Okay, tell me the location, and I'll come find you. Hua Min knew that Lady Su wouldn't come looking for him for no reason, so he respected her and didn't reject her. I'll send a driver to pick you up. Sure, I'm at South Hill Manor. Hua Min gave her the address. Okay, see you in a bit. Lady Su's voice was gentle. Auntie Su? Don't tell me she's Su Yu's mother. Jiang Xiaowei looked surprised. That's right, that's her. Huh. Why is she looking for you? I don't know, haha, but I've met Lady Su twice, and I think she's a nice person. She's a well-mannered elder. Ever since Hua Min met Su Yu's mother twice, He suddenly felt like he was unlucky to have a mother-in-law like Lady Qin. So, without realizing it, he had a good impression of Lady Su. Okay, then I'll go now. Let's meet up another day. You can come with me when I try on dresses. Okay. Hua Min nodded. Jiang Xiaowei left South Hill Manor first. Lady Su's men were very efficient. Not long after Jiang Xiaowei left, a black Audi A8 arrived at South Hill Manor. Miss Hua, I'm here to pick you up on Madam's orders. Okay. Hua Min nodded and got into the car. On the way, she didn't forget to flirt with Mr. Qin. She first sent him an 88 yuan red pocket, and Mr. Qin immediately accepted it. He even added, "Honey, you're so generous." Hua Min sent a smiley emoji. That's true. Other people's wives at most give me 88 yuan as pocket money. Am I good to you? Thank you, my wife, for your generosity. Qin Chu was in a high-level meeting, and he smiled as he typed on his phone. Everyone was also confused. No one dared to interrupt, afraid that the boss would flip out. Ahem. Boss, should we continue? Yang whispered into his ear. You can continue. Qin Chu raised his head and said calmly. Yes, boss. About the increase in our market for this quarter. The marketing director said. Qin Chu was playing with his phone with his head down. No one knew what he was saying to Hua Min, but he seemed to be in a good mood. However, was it really a good idea to show off his love with his wife on WeChat during a meeting? Boss, does your father know that you're so naughty? Yang was truly worried about the boss. As expected, after the marketing director finished his report, he purposely asked, Boss, I'm done. Do you have anything to add? Qin Chu put down his phone, looked around, and said, It's almost the end of the year. It should be the peak season, but you're telling me that the increase won't be more than 8%? Are you kidding me? I remember in a meeting last month, I said that 10% was the minimum. If it didn't go over 10%, I wouldn't be able to explain myself. Now that it's only 8%, you're so proud? You want me to add something? What can I add? I'll give you half a month. If you can't increase that 2%, your department's year-end bonus will be cancelled. The marketing director immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He thought that since his boss was playing with his phone while he was in a meeting, he wouldn't be in the mood to listen. That was why he was so proud of himself and thought that he could get away with it. He didn't expect his boss to be able to multitask. He was playing with his phone while listening to every single word. Seeing that the marketing department was being criticized, the female director of the administrative department said protectively, President Qin, you can't blame them. Our colleagues did their best. Chapter 950. Qin Chu looked at the female director and sneered. Then he asked, It's normal for the marketing department to be under a lot of pressure, because their bonuses and base salaries are much higher than other departments. Don't think that administrative staff like you only need to do your job well. Last time, for the 30-year anniversary, if you didn't have the help of PR and publicity, do you think you could have done it yourself? For the New Year's party, I'll leave the project to you. You have less than 20 days to prepare. If you don't pass, you'll be responsible for running away. President Qin. The female director was so regretful that she wanted to slap herself. Why did she have to say that? Now, her boss was going all out, and she was dragged into this mess. The New Year's party was also a difficult issue. If it was only 20 days, it would be a bit difficult. Does anyone else have anything to say? Qin Chu asked coldly. President Qin. After Director Zhang Linyue left, our department's performance has been declining. Before, when Director Zhang was here, we could submit at least 3 out of 10 designs. Now, we can't even pass 1 out of 20 designs. I think it's better to transfer Director Zhang back. I've talked to her in private, and she personally doesn't think she's suitable for the position of president of our branch in T-City. President Qin, please consider the bigger picture of the company. The person who spoke was a manager of the design department. He used to work under Zhang Linyue, but ever since she left, he wasn't good at management. Therefore, he fearlessly made this request. Qin Chu looked at him quietly and only asked, You rely on Director Zhang so much, what if she resigns? What do you plan to do? Do you want me to beg her to come back? No. President Qin, that's not what I meant. You don't improve yourself, and you still rely on an employee who left. I wanted to give you a chance, but you're not up to it. Fine, from now on, you can return to your original position. I'll appoint a director of the design department. I want you to remember that GK didn't get to where it is today because of one person's ability, but the team's ability. The company can survive without anyone, but not all companies will give you a chance like GK. President Chin. I just want the company to be better. I just think that Director Jiang is very capable, the person said with an aggrieved expression. I can see who's doing well and who's doing bad. The company doesn't keep idle people, but we won't miss out on talent either. I know how to make arrangements for Director Jiang. I don't need you to teach me. If you have the time, why don't you reflect on yourself and think about how you can come up with more eye-catching drawings instead of relying on external help? Qin Chu stepped down from his position as the director of the design department. Furthermore, he even scolded all the other higher-ups. The director of the design department lowered his head silently. This was the first time he felt that Boss Qin's words were so sharp. Everyone lowered their heads, not daring to make a sound. Any other questions? Qin Chu stood up and adjusted the cuffs of his black suit. Everyone was silent. Boss, the sales department hasn't given out the bonus for this month. Do you want it to be included with this month's salary? Or do you want to delay it until next month or the end of the year? Assistant Yang asked. When the old president was still around, he made the same rule. Because the sales department's bonus was relatively large, it was usually settled every 3 months or half a year. However, after Qin Chu came, it was settled every month. However, President Qin was in a bad mood recently. The sales director was smart and knew how to read his mood, so he didn't dare to bring it up. Instead, he privately complained to Assistant Yang twice. Therefore, Assistant Yang suddenly thought of this, and casually asked, but the sales director was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Upon hearing Assistant Yang's question, the male director of the sales department immediately stood up and pretended to be a good person. President Qin, there's no rush. We can wait. It's okay, the company has its difficulties, and everyone understands. There's really no rush. Chapter 951. Qin Chu nodded and glanced at Assistant Yang. Of course. The sales department works so hard, running the business under the sun and wind. It's only a small bonus, so it's not too late. Tell the finance department that the bonus will be paid monthly. If an employee has any difficulties, they can also apply for an advance payment. Of course, it has to be approved by the supervisor. Okay. President Qin. Assistant Yang smiled. Luckily, his boss was very kind and did what he had to do. After Qin Chu left the meeting room, the executives finally let out a sigh of relief. President Qin is scary. I'm really scared of him. Every time I see him, I feel like a cold gust of wind is blowing at me. Haha. Yeah, our boss is famous for being cold and aloof. Your sales department is amazing. President Qin is so lucky. The executives looked at the sales director enviously. Our boss empathizes with our department's hard work. Haha. Let's not compare. When Qin Chu returned to his office, Song Yisher called. However, Qin Chu didn't pick up. He felt like Song Yisher had been talking to him a lot lately. Even if nothing happened, Hua Min must be unhappy. If Su Yu talked to Hua Min so often, he wouldn't be happy either. So, Qin Chu let the phone ring, but he had no intention of picking it up. Boss, why hasn't a young lady been coming to the company lately? Did you guys really fight? Assistant Yang read the hot news on the newspaper and was really worried about his boss's relationship with a young lady. To be honest, he was a fan of Qin Chu and Hua Mian, and he really thought that they were the perfect couple. When did you start to care about my personal life? Aren't you overstepping your authority as an assistant? Qin Chu looked up and stared at Assistant Yang. Assistant Yang shrunk his neck in fear. Haha, calm down, I was just asking. My wife is a fan of a young lady, and she often fights with the haters to defend a young lady. She asks me about it every day, but I don't know how to answer her. Little Yang continued to play the part of a naive and sweet boy, hoping that the boss wouldn't get angry. Then, as expected, Qin Chu's expression softened considerably. Then tell your wife not to worry. Does that mean you guys are fine? Haha, I knew that you would not have any conflicts with a young lady since you love your wife so much. As soon as Yang heard his boss's words, his mood immediately improved. Chin Chu was twirling a pen in his hand. He was thinking about meeting Hua Min tonight. In the past, he used to think that it was nonsense to say that a day apart felt like 3 autumns. Now, he felt that these words made a lot of sense. How was this a song of the 3 autumns? It was practically N seasons apart, okay? He missed hugging Hua Min to sleep. Looking at her sleeping posture in his arms, she was just like a kitten. Honey, I'll look for you at South Hill Manor tonight. He sent her a WeChat message. No. Honey. For the first time, Mr. Chin acted coquettishly. Although Hua Min's heart was about to soften, he still felt uncomfortable at the thought of being set up by someone. He decided to hold it in and catch the person behind all this. Therefore, he comforted Chin Chu. Honey, be good. We have to work together to catch the bad guy. Then how are you going to make it up to me these past few days? Chin Chu asked proudly. Anyway. In order to calm him down, Hua Min made up his mind and replied. Really? Really? Then when this is over, I want to do it 10 times a night. Hua Min. I want to use all the positions on your body. Hua Min. Oh right. I also want you to wear sexy pajamas and act as a bunny girl for me. Hua Min. Bunny girl? How did he come up with such a lowly method? What a godlike idea. Chin Chu, you're the president of a top company. Can you not be so dirty? Hua Min was speechless. Mr. Chin said that he can be so dirty to his wife. When did Mr. Chin say something like that? Hua Min asked seriously. I think if Mr. Chin was still alive, he would have said something like that. Fuck off. Hua Min was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. The car slowly drove into a high-end residential area. Aren't we going to a restaurant or a tea house? Hua Min thought that Lady Su wanted to meet him in a quiet place. Why was it in a residential area? Madam said to bring you to her home. What? The Su family? Hua Mian couldn't keep her cool anymore and couldn't sit still. So, this was the most famous residential area in the Red Military District? It was said that this residential area was heavily guarded. There were even exaggerated rumors that each villa had a secret tunnel. Anyways, it was very mysterious. Chapter 952. Hua Min would never have thought that she would end up in such a magical place like the Su family. Also, Lady Su didn't invite her here to kill her, did she? She had heard a rumor before that a rich man's son who was cold and aloof fell in love with a woman but couldn't get her. That family used their connections to kidnap the woman and bring her back. Later, the woman went crazy after being raped. Later, she was sent to prison in a certain city. Later, she died of an illness. No one knew exactly what happened. In any case, that family didn't even see their daughter's body. Hua Min had always been unwilling to deal with the sons of high officials because there were too many shady deals. It wasn't something that ordinary people could understand. Therefore, Hua Min started to feel afraid. She was really afraid that once she came in, she would never be able to get out. She didn't dare to send Chin Chu a WeChat message because Chin Chu would definitely be worried. Therefore, she sent a WeChat message to Zhang Xiaowei. Xiaowei, I'm at the Su family. It's okay, you don't have to reply. I'll just let you know where I am. Zhang Xiaowei seemed to understand. She didn't reply after reading the message, but she understood what Hua Min meant. She was worried about Hua Min's situation, so she called Wei Liao. Queen Wei, what can I do for you? Wei Liao asked with a smile. What kind of person is Su Yu's mother? Zhang Xiaowei asked directly. Why are you asking this all of a sudden? Wei Liao was confused. Aya, I'm asking you, just answer me. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Zhang Xiaowei was impatient. Auntie Su is a very nice person. We used to go to the Su family's house to play. She's very gentle, many times better than my mother. Wei Liao spoke highly of her. Okay, I understand. Hearing Wei Liao's words, Zhang Xiaowei was relieved. Wei Liao and Su Yu had been buddies for so many years. He definitely understood Lady Su. If he said so, then Lady Su wouldn't do anything to Hua Min. She wouldn't do anything to her just because of the negative news about her son, would she? In front of the Su villa, there were very few people at home in the Su family. Master Lord Su and Father Su were basically flying people. Lady Su would sometimes gather with friends, travel, and attend business dinners held by charity organizations. She even sang old songs from the 90s during Imperial Star's anniversary celebration. She was really like 9. The driver slowly parked the car. As soon as Hua Min got out of the car, Lady Su walked out. She was wearing a cashmere dress with bell sleeves and a pearl necklace around her neck. She wore a small skirt with a skirt below. It matched very well. It was a very warm flesh-colored color. Hua Min, come in quickly. Lady Su warmly pulled her hand and walked in. Are you cold? Lady Su asked. Hua Min shook her head. No, I've been in the car all this time. The temperature is just right. Ah Xiang, make some rose tea. Yes, madam. The Su family's maids were busy cutting fruits and making flower tea. Hua Min was not used to it. To be honest, she had never been treated so warmly by an elder before. The few times she went to the Qin family, she always had to see Lady Qin's angry face and the inevitable quarrel. Auntie Su, you asked me to come here today. Is there something you need? Hua Min looked at her and asked softly. Yes, there is something. Wait for me, okay? After speaking, Lady Su went upstairs. When she came back down after a while, she had a thick photo album in her hand. In other words, the photo album she was talking about now. She sat intimately beside Hua Min, leaning close to her. She had the unique fragrance of a mother, which made people feel very warm. Although the outside world said that Lady Su was very scary, and that she was very protective of her children, Hua Min felt that Lady Su was a good person. At least for now, she seemed to be a good person. Hua Min, come, let me show you were when he was young. With that, Lady Su slowly opened the photo album. A picture of a chubby baby appeared in front of her. There was a red down the middle of his forehead and he was wearing a red doo-doo. He was sitting in a bamboo basket, pouting and frowning. He was so cute, like a ginseng baby. Is this really Suyu? Hua Min could not help but ask with a smile. Chapter 953. Yeah, let me tell you. When I was pregnant, I wanted a girl. But when I saw that it was a boy, I was pretty disappointed. I even secretly dressed him up as a girl. Later, when he grew up and became more sensible, he started to have gender awareness. He didn't allow me to draw red dots for him anymore. Haha. Lady Su was very happy when she talked about Su Yu's childhood. Hua Min couldn't help but laugh. She couldn't imagine that the famous Lord Su of Sea City also had such a shocking experience when he was young. Most importantly, he had a mother who made things difficult for him. And she was his biological mother. Hey, don't just chat. Eat the apple. I picked it from my own orchard. It's pure green and pesticide-free. As she spoke, Lady Su stuffed a small red apple into Hua Min's hand. She stopped being pretentious and took a bite out of it, graciously and generously. Then, Lady Su flipped through the photo album and pointed at a photo. This is a photo of him when he was 3 years old. Back then, his grandfather had to go on a business trip. He couldn't bear to leave him, but he had to go. In the end, he took him with him. I carried him and followed his grandfather's army to the western mountains. We stayed for more than 10 days. When we came back, his face was as red as a potato. Haha. Hua Min laughed. Lady Su's description was too vivid. Wasn't it just red on the face? The kind that was blown by the wind. Red on the plateau? Lady Su was really talented. And this one, it's really funny too. I brought him to Disneyland in America. Then, we met a little girl who thought my son was a girl because he was pretty. She kept chasing after him and calling him sister. In the end couldn't take it anymore and said, if you call me sister again, do you believe that I'll cut off your ponytail? The little girl was so scared that she started crying. She thought it was real. Hua Min didn't say anything and just laughed. And this one. When he was 10 years old, he got second place in the National Mathematical Olympiad. His grandfather and father were very happy. But he said, what's there to be happy about? It's not like he got first place. He was actually a straight-A student when he was young. Hua Min was a little surprised. He didn't expect Suyu to be a straight-A student. Yeah, he's really good at math, and he's really smart. But he doesn't like to read, saying that he's afraid that he'll become a nerd. Lady Su smiled as she continued flipping through the pages. Then, a picture of him wearing a military uniform appeared. It was Hua Min's first time seeing Suyu in a military uniform, and he actually looked so righteous. He actually didn't feel out of place at all. He was really handsome. There were two pictures next to each other. One of them was in a camouflage uniform. At that time, his skin was darker because of the exposure to the sun during training. There was also a picture of him wearing a formal suit and performing a military salute. He was simply the best-looking soldier. The year he left the army, I cried for a long time. I couldn't bear to let him go. I thought that he was going to suffer, but he agreed to it himself, so I couldn't do anything about it. You probably don't know what kind of soldier he was, right? Lady Su looked at Hua Min and asked. Hua Min shook his head. She had never been interested in Su Yu, so she never asked him about his past. He was in the Special Forces. Special Forces? The kind that's not very dangerous? Hua Min was slightly surprised. Yeah. When he went to the West, I was dead against it because it was too dangerous. Really? It's not what we imagined. Let's not talk about the climate. The West is the border with country Y, and it's not very peaceful. On the surface, it looks peaceful, but in reality, every country is secretly competing with each other. 3 of Su Yu's teammates died in a mission. That's so serious. Hua Min didn't expect a prince like Su Yu to go to the Special Forces. Chapter 954. Yeah, because of this I had a big fight with his father, so I asked him to come back. He stayed for 2 more years and was about to be promoted before he was discharged. The truth is, he didn't want to come back. Don't be fooled by his usual sloppy behavior. He's actually a patriot. He's always thought that patrolling the border was his proudest achievement. In the end, his grandfather ordered him to be discharged because, as you know, the Su family has very few descendants. After I gave birth to Su Yu, my health deteriorated and I didn't want any more children. So, he's really important to us. Lady Su used the word special twice in a row to show how important Su Yu was to the Su family. Hua Min nodded and didn't say much. He only listened to Lady Su. This is a photo of him after he came back and started his company. He was still young back then. Yeah, I don't think he was mature back then, Hua Min said as he looked at the photo while munching on an apple. And this is a photo of us having fun in the South Sea during Chinese New Year last year. She pointed at Su Yu. He was wearing an orange singlet, black beach pants, and brown sunglasses. He looked like a superstar and was very eye-catching. Lady Su flipped through the photo album and told Hua Min some interesting stories about Su Yu. Finally, she reached out and closed the photo album. She looked at Hua Min and said, "This time, you didn't care about your reputation and testified for you, I'm really impressed. I thought most women would protect their own interests and not care about others." "It's nothing, Auntie Su. I was the witness to begin with," Hua Min replied calmly. "Then, do you know what happened after you testified?" "I know." Hua Min smiled nonchalantly. "You knew but you still did it. Aren't you afraid that your reputation will be ruined?" Lady Su looked at Hua Min seriously and asked. How should I put it? For me, compared to losing my reputation, I care more about my heart. I don't want to do anything that would let me down. This is my principle." Hua Min said word by word. Lady Su's eyes were filled with admiration. "Thank you very much for doing this for Su Yu." "No, it's because he's been protecting me. That's why he didn't mention our meeting. I think it's only right for me to testify. I'm not that great. Please don't think of me as a great person. In fact, I'm just an ordinary person with a selfish side. When I encounter something difficult, I'll play tricks." Hua Min said honestly. "That's why I like you." Lady Su looked at her lovingly. Hua Min was a little embarrassed. He lowered his head and chewed the apple very slowly. "Madam, dinner is ready. Let's go and eat." "Auntie Su, you're too polite. I won't be eating. I'm leaving." Hua Min felt that it was wrong of him to stay for dinner. After all, he wasn't that close to the Su family. "Don't worry, Su Yu won't come back. I know what you're worried about. Just treat it as accompanying me, okay? I'm the only one at home." Upon hearing Lady Su's words, Hua Min felt too embarrassed to refuse. He could only bite the bullet and follow Lady Su to the dining room. "I heard that you really like seafood. I went to the market this morning and bought some. They're quite fresh." "Thank you, Auntie Su." Hua Min was a little embarrassed. He found a seat and sat down. He looked at the table full of seafood. scallops, squid, conches, sea monsters, sea rabbits, crabs, and mantis shrimps. It was a complete mess of seafood. Don't be nervous, we're just chatting. Seeing Hua Min's awkwardness, Lady Su reminded him. Auntie Su, I'm a straightforward person. Why don't you just tell me why you called me here today? Lady Su put down her chopsticks and smiled at Hua Min. After a while she slowly said, I actually wanted to ask, did you and your husband really have a conflict? Hua Min was quite surprised. To be honest, he didn't expect Lady Su to ask this. I'm saying if you guys really don't get along like the media said, and you guys break up peacefully, can you give Suyu a chance? After hearing this, Hua Min was even more shocked. Lady Su was confessing on behalf of Suyu. Chapter 955. Auntie Su. Hua Min looked at Lady Su in shock and didn't know what to say. Hua Min, don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to break you and your husband up. I'm just asking if the two of you really might break up, and if you're single in the future, please give Suyu a chance. He really likes you. I've never seen him like someone so much since he was a kid. I feel bad seeing him like this, but I know that you and your husband are very close. There's a rumor going around that you're getting a divorce. I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't know if your husband has any issues with you, so I wanted to invite you here so that we can talk about this face to face. Auntie Su, my husband and I are very close. We've known each other for many years. Hua Min said honestly. Okay, if that's the case, then pretend that I didn't say anything today. Don't blame me for being immoral. Haha. Although I'm quite ridiculous myself, I'm just a mother who loves her son. I don't want to see Suyu like that. He really likes me, and I like you as well. But since it's not meant to be, then it's okay. Lady Su was more open-minded, so she didn't say anything when Hua Min rejected her. I'm sorry, Auntie Su, I'm sorry to disappoint you. No, I'm the one who's embarrassed. As an elder, it's really not appropriate for me to do this. Please don't tell you about this. He's so stubborn, he'll definitely be mad at me. Lady Su reminded him. I won't tell him. Okay, then hurry up and eat. Go home early after you're done. Lady Su wasn't angry at Hua Min's rejection. Instead, he greeted her warmly. The truth was, Lady Su's thoughts were sometimes very simple. Now that the rumors were so fierce, and Lady Qin didn't like Hua Min so much, she actually thought. If Hua Min really couldn't hold on and separated from Qin Chu, since she was single, could she give Suyu a chance? That way, his son wouldn't be distracted every day and suffer the pain of unrequited love. However, since Hua Min had said that there was nothing wrong, she was too embarrassed to continue. When they left the Su family, it was already dark. Lady Su had just asked the driver to send Hua Min out when Suyu drove back. The two cars passed each other, but because the windows were black, Suyu didn't notice the people in the Audi A8. Mom, why didn't you invite me to eat seafood tonight? As soon as Suyu entered, he saw that the table was full of seafood. I'm treating them, not buying them for you. Lady Su sat on the sofa in the living room and drank tea. Treat? Who is it? How could my mom personally invite them to our house? Suyu smiled as he shook the car keys in his hand. Hua Min. Lady Su calmly replied. Who? This time, Lord Su couldn't stay calm. Hua Min. Hua as in Hua Yuanjia, Mian as in sleep. At the end, Lady Su even spelled out the name in pinyin. It was hilarious. Lady Su could be so naughty. Mom, are you kidding me? Suyu obviously didn't believe her. If you don't believe me, you can look at the surveillance cameras. You invited her to our house? Yeah. Seafood. Yeah. Then, what's your motive? Suyu was completely speechless. I just like her. Lady Su said nonchalantly. Mom, stop it. Suyu obviously didn't believe her. You don't like her? Lady Su looked at her son's face and asked. Then, Lord Su actually blushed. Don't change the subject. Hurry up and tell me, why did you invite her here? Really? I just brought her to see your childhood photos. What? This time, Suyu really exploded. Mom, don't tell me you showed her the stupid red doo-doo from when I was a month old? Suyu was about to explode. Yes, that's the one, Mrs. Su said proudly. Chapter 956. Mom. Suyu was on the verge of breaking down. What? Lady Su was still leisurely sipping her tea. Tell me the truth. Did you give me away when you recharged your phone? Sorry, when I gave birth to you, it wasn't popular to give children away when you recharged your phone. Lady Su was even calmer. Can you not trick me like this? Suyu wanted to cry. Why did Hua Min see the most embarrassing photo of his life? He wanted to die. Didn't she know how embarrassing it was to embarrass yourself in front of your sweetheart? I didn't trick you. That photo is so cute. What if Hua Min falls in love with you because of that photo? Wouldn't I be doing you a big favor? What if Hua Min thinks of that photo and avoids me like I'm the plague? Suyu asked. Lady Su was slightly surprised. Then I didn't think about it that much. Mom. I don't respect anyone in my life, but I respect you. Suyu was also helpless. He turned around and ran upstairs. He immediately took out the photo album and walked downstairs. Hey, where are you going with this? Son. I'm going to lock it in my bank safe. I don't want you to trick me. Lady Su. When he came out, Suyu was driving when he received an unknown number. Hello. Suyu, it's Minmin. Who is it? Su Jimin, dummy. Su Jimin's voice was incomparably cheerful, which was very consistent with her personality. Who's Su Jimin? Suyu was confused again. He never remembered the names of people he didn't care about. To be honest, even now, he couldn't remember Mayor Song's baby daughter's name. Song Shaosher? Or Song Meisher? Forget it, what did it have to do with him? Damn. Are you doing this on purpose? We met a while ago. My grandpa brought me to your house as a guest. At this point, Suyu suddenly realized who it was. Oh, it's you. What's the matter? Can't I call you for no reason? Of course, I'm very busy. Can you help me get a signed photo of Ni Yang? I really like him. I haven't seen any news about him recently, and no one in the fan group knows about it. I don't know if he went abroad for a vacation, and he hasn't updated his Weibo either. I'm so worried. First of all, you need to get one thing straight. Ni Yang is from GK Film and Television. Yeah, I know. Don't you think it's too much to ask me when you know? I saw on the news that you're having an affair with a young lady from GK Film and Television. She's Ni Yang's older sister, so of course I wanted to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. I'm hanging up. Suyu angrily hung up on Su Jimin. When she called again, Suyu didn't pick up. When Hua Min returned to South Hill Manor, Uncle Lee walked up to him. A young lady. Dinner is ready. Although Lady Su prepared a seafood feast for her, she still wasn't full. Initially, she thought that Mrs. Su was going to forcefully detain her or kill her. Thankfully, she made it out safely and discovered a secret. Su Yu's mother was so innocent that she could help her son confess his love for her. She was the best mother in China, and there was no one better than her. Just then, her phone beeped with a WeChat message. Little sister Mion, didn't I ask you to come back to the company? I've been waiting for you all day. I forgot, she replied to Hua Xiqian as she ate. Then come back tomorrow. The old man's done drafting the documents. Okay. How are things between you and Qin Chu? He asked. Not good. We've been in a cold war and are living separately. I went back to my home in South Hill, but he's still at Imperial Park, Hua Min said on purpose. Haha, really? Hua Xiqian obviously didn't believe him. Aren't you a prophet? Shouldn't you know better than me? Hua Min asked back. Then what are you going to do? You're not going to admit defeat to Song Yishur just like that, are you? That's not like you. Do you need my help? Hua Xiqian probed. Chapter 957. You'll help me? How? Hua Min replied with a smile. Of course I have my ways. But I'll definitely help you get rid of this problem. You're that kind-hearted? Hua Min obviously didn't believe him. I've always been kind-hearted to you. Haven't you noticed? Haha. Why would young Master Hua do something that doesn't benefit you? These sweet words are enough to fool innocent little girls, but they don't work on me. If you don't tell me what you want in return, of course I won't ask you to help me. I don't deserve a reward for nothing. You little girl. You're so stubborn. Finally, Hua Xiqian said, fine, since you asked, I'll tell you. What I want is actually very simple. The old man will transfer his shares tomorrow, and you can transfer them to me then. Anyways, I want all of Huamin. That's not a problem. But is that really all you want? Are there any additional conditions? Huamin asked worriedly. What additional conditions? If you want to give me extra benefits, that's fine. After all, GK is a big company, Hua Xiqian joked. Seriously, do you really have a way to deal with Song Yisher? But she's Mayor Song's daughter, Huamin said in all seriousness. It has nothing to do with whose daughter she is. I have my ways. Fine, then I believe you. If you help me deal with Song Yisher, I'll transfer all of the Hua family shares to you. I won't take any of the old man's money. Okay, that's a deal. Wait for my good news. After hanging up the phone, Huamin was confused. Hua Xiqian's words were always suspicious. Did she need him to help her deal with Song Yisher? Of course not, but she felt like Hua Xiqian had another reason for bringing it up. As for what it was, she couldn't tell. However, she and Qin Chu should be able to end the game now. This was because Hua Xiqian would no longer reveal his foxtail. Since he had taken the initiative to help Huamin deal with Song Yisher, his next move would be to deal with Song Yisher. Huamin picked up his phone and called Qin Chu, but he couldn't get through. Then she sent another WeChat message. Hubby, the game is over. Go home, I'm waiting for you. After waiting for 5 minutes, nothing happened. Huamin began to panic. Would Mr. Qin be angry and ignore her? Plus, she didn't report to Mr. Qin when she went to the Su family. Just as her thoughts were running wild, she heard the sound of the bedroom door opening. Then, she saw Qin Chu standing at the door. He was wearing a dark brown suit and had an extremely handsome face. Qin Chu was always so calm and collected. He was different from Su Yu. Su Yu was the outgoing type. He was flamboyant, fiery, and domineering. If he liked you, he would be extremely passionate. If he didn't like you, he wouldn't even remember your name. Qin Chu, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. He was very introverted and didn't show his emotions on his face. He kept a lot of his feelings bottled up in his heart. For example, he cared about Huamin a lot. However, no one could tell what he was feeling from his expression. Normal people couldn't understand his feelings for her. However, Huamin could see and feel her persistence. Hubby. Huamin couldn't help but run over to Qin Chu and hug his waist as soon as she saw Qin Chu. Then she hugged him tightly, as if she was afraid that if she let go he would disappear. I called you, but I couldn't get through. You didn't reply to my WeChat either. I'm panicking. What are you afraid of? I won't get lost. Qin Chu looked down at her lovingly. Then, he reached out and cupped her pretty face in his hands. Did you see my WeChat? Yeah. I was almost home, so I didn't reply to you. Qin Chu picked up Huamin. Then, he walked over to the sofa and let her sit in his arms. It was a typical doting gesture. I think Hua Xiqian has changed his strategy. His focus isn't on whether or not we'll get a divorce. Instead, it seems like he wants to get closer to Song Yisher. Although I don't know what he wants to do, I think it's part of his plan. Huamin leaned against Qin Chu's chest and told him her analysis. Qin Chu gently stroked Huamin's silky hair. His gaze was gentle. Honey, let's not talk about this for now. We have more important things to do. What? Huamin froze. She thought that he had discovered something important. However, Qin Chu's hand slipped into her cotton pajamas. Chapter 958. Ah, what are you doing? I haven't showered yet. Shower after we're done. Then, Huamin completely fell into Mr. Qin's gentleness. Maybe it was because they hadn't been together for a long time, but the two of them were exceptionally passionate. Huamin was even a little nervous and excited. She awkwardly matched Mr. Qin's movements, and even teased him from time to time. Slight panting sounds filled the air. Nights like this were especially mesmerizing. An hour later, Huamin went to the bathroom to take a shower and then walked out, exhausted. Qin Chu seemed to be tired as well. He leaned against the headboard and lit a cigarette. When Huamin walked out, he reached out his hand. Huamin obediently walked over and sat down on the edge of the bed. He wrapped his arm around her slim waist. Honey, after Song Yisher came back to China, we seem to be angry more often. I thought about it, Maybe I didn't make it obvious enough that I didn't care about her enough. That's why you misunderstood. I'm sorry. Hua Min leaned her head against his chest and said softly, actually, I know there's nothing going on between the two of you. You don't care about her. I don't need to tell you. You know what she's thinking. Song Yisher isn't the source of our arguments. And neither is Su Yu. It's just that there's been a lot going on lately, and with all of that added up, it's hard for me to not feel a little overwhelmed. We're humans, not machines. Yeah, you're right. Qin Chu nodded, completely agreeing with Hua Min's point of view. But honey, we can't ignore the danger behind this. We're still not sure if Hua Xiqian is behind all of this. If it's not him, then, we have other enemies, so we need to be more careful. I'm fine with it. You, on the other hand, need to take care of yourself. Okay. Hua Min nodded. They hadn't been together for a long time, so they really missed each other. Hua Min quickly crawled under the covers and curled up in Qin Chu's arms like a kitten. That sense of security that he hadn't felt for a long time arose spontaneously. Qin Chu hadn't slept well for several nights. Now that he smelled Hua Min's unique body fragrance, he quickly fell asleep. After a long time, Hua Min opened his eyes. She found that Qin Chu was already in deep sleep. His breathing was very even. Under the moonlight, she looked at his young and beautiful face. Hua Min was still in disbelief. The man she loved deeply when she was young had actually become her husband. How lucky is this? She stealthily planted a light kiss on the corner of his mouth. Thank you for not giving up all these years. Thank you for betting your happiness on me. I won't let you lose, ever. Good night, my dearest Mr. Qin. Hua Min's voice was very soft. She murmured, then wrapped her arms around his neck and fell asleep happily. Early morning Hua Min got up early and was in a good mood. He even put on his home clothes and prepared breakfast with the maids. When Qin Chu came downstairs, everything was ready. Honey, what did you make? Qin Chu woke up half an hour later than her. After a good night's sleep, he felt much more energetic. The haze from the past few days was swept away. I made egg pancakes, but it wasn't very successful. They're a little burnt. Hua Min stuck out her tongue. The center of the plate in her hand was a slightly blackened egg pancake. So our breakfast is your dark cuisine? Qin Chu couldn't help but laugh. Hua Min, then can you eat what they make? There are many different types of breakfast. It's not just egg pancakes. Hua Min felt wronged in her heart. Qin Chu smiled, took the plate from her hand, and placed it on the table. I love this. Then he began to eat with relish. Although it didn't taste very good, because it was made by Hua Min, Qin Chu felt much happier. Hua Min sat across from Qin Chu and slowly sipped on a cup of warm milk. What's on the agenda today, honey? Qin Chu knew that Hua Min also had a day off, so he asked as he ate. Chapter 959. In the morning. Let's go back to the Hua Corporation. Hua Zhanghai is going to change his will and redistribute his shares. Then you're going to make a fortune again, right? Qin Chu laughed. Yeah. If you lose your job, I can take care of you. Ever since I married you, I have a lot more money in my pocket. Okay, then I won't have to worry about losing my job. Ever since she married Qin Chu, not counting the tens of millions that he transferred her, Hua Min's salary was 1,000,000 yuan from GK's finance department. Therefore, Hua Min was now a rich woman. She had so much money that she couldn't spend it all. Then let's have lunch together. Come find me. I'll wait for you at the company. Yeah, sure. Hua Min nodded. Mr. and Mrs. Hua's matching outfits are very nice, a maid beside them said quietly. Hua Min looked down and realized that she and Qin Chu were both wearing white today. DG's white sweater was loose. Although it wasn't the sexy type, it was still very youthful. The high school vibe was very suitable for Hua Min, who was a little fresh. She randomly found this one in her closet. It was just a pair of simple, dark-colored denim pencil pants and a pair of sheepskin heels. Qin Chu also wore white, which was a rare sight. It was the latest men's knitted sweater from a famous luxury brand in France. He rarely wore bright colors, but it looked especially good on him. Especially in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, when the sun shone in, their white outfits matched the scenery. Our outfits really match. Hua Min smiled. Our hearts are connected. Qin Chu looked at her, his gaze as gentle as water. When they left South Hill Manor, They each drove their own cars and went their separate ways at the fork in the road. Hua Corporation headquarters. When Hua Min arrived, it wasn't time yet. She had always been punctual and hated waiting for others, but she also hated being waited for. She felt that being punctual was the most basic form of respect for others. The shareholders came in one after another, but Shen Jiani and Hua Si were nowhere to be seen. Hua Yanyan followed behind Hua Zhanghai when he walked in. She looked haggard and wasn't dressed as ostentatiously as before. It was just a black woolen dress with her hair in a high ponytail. His complexion was terrible, and there were obvious dark circles under his eyes. Needless to say, Hua Yanyan had not been doing well recently because her powerful mother had been grounded. A brainless person like her naturally wouldn't be able to stir up any waves. After she came in, she glanced at Hua Min without saying anything. At that moment, Hua Xiqian walked in. President Hua. President Hua. Now the shareholders' attitude towards Hua Xiqian had already surpassed that of Hua Zhanghai, the chairman. Since everyone is here, then, let's begin. Dad, why don't you start? Hua Xiqian smiled at Hua Zhanghai. Hua Zhanghai had been through a lot recently, and the white hair on both sides of his ears was especially obvious. Something happened at home recently, so I plan to redistribute the shares and make a will. Today, I invited everyone here to be witnesses. Then, Hua Zhenghai's lawyer walked up and read the terms one by one. Everyone listened in silence. Although the Hua Corporation was a family business, it didn't have all the shares. The small shareholders still had a lot of shares. After this redistribution, Hua Xiqian's shares didn't increase by much, but Jiang Heng's shares increased by 2%. Hua Min's shares also increased by 10%, becoming the second largest shareholder after Hua Zhanghai. Hua Yanyan and Shen Jiani's shares were taken away, and Hua Si's shares were less than 2%. It seemed like even though she was his biological daughter, it couldn't stop Hua Zhanghai from venting his anger on her. After the announcement, no one said anything. After all, this was the Hua family's business. Hua Mian. Don't let me down, Hua Zhanghai said to Hua Min in a meaningful tone. Hua Min wanted to say something but didn't. She was actually very conflicted. If Hua Zhanghai knew that she wasn't his biological daughter, he would probably be so angry that he would start foaming at the mouth. Dad. Little sister Mian is so smart, of course she won't let you down, Hua Xiqian answered for her. Hua Zhanghai nodded and left, exhausted. As Hua Min walked out, Hua Yanyan suddenly whispered behind him, Hua Min, I have something to talk to you about. Hua Min turned around and looked at her in surprise. Can we talk somewhere else? It's not convenient here. Obviously, Hua Yanyan didn't want Hua Xiqian to know. Chapter 960. Okay. Hua Min nodded and followed Hua Yanyan to a small lounge next to the conference room. She looked haggard and was no longer as arrogant as she used to be. Hua Min, I have a favor to ask of you. What is it? Hua Min nodded. He knew that Hua Yanyan was no longer a threat to him. Can you introduce me to Shen Mingxi? I want to pursue him. Shen Mingxi? Who? It wasn't Hua Min's fault that he wasn't well informed. Shen Mingxi was too low-key. He's one of the 4 princes, the son of the Shen family from the Beiyang Automobile Company. He came back not long ago. Oh right. He came back around the same time as young Master Su. But I don't know him. I know. Shen Mingxi is very low-key and rarely interacts with people in the industry. I can't reach him even if I wanted to. But I heard that he's very close to young Master Su. I think, since you're so close to Su Yu, it won't be a problem if you ask him to introduce you to him. As for whether or not I can get him, that's up to me. You just need to be in charge of the referral. Hua Min was about to speak when Hua Yanyan said, I won't let you help me for free. I can transfer some of my shares to you. After all, you'll be the second biggest shareholder after my dad. You can compete with Hua Xiqian. Haha. The problem is, I'm not interested in your shares and I don't want to compete with Hua Xiqian. You don't have to lie to me. My mom already said that you're definitely not with Hua Xiqian. Your mom knows me that well? Hua Mian was surprised. She didn't expect Shen Jiani to be so thorough. My mom didn't say why, but I believe in her analysis. What do you think? Do you want to do this deal? I'll use my shares in exchange for your recommendation. Hua Yanyan sincerely begged Hua Min. She didn't care what the news said, but she knew that Hua Min and Su Yu had a special relationship. If Hua Min asked, Suyu would definitely help. The problem was whether she could open her mouth or not. Sorry, I can't help you. Hua Min declined with a smile. First of all, she was not interested in Hua Yanyan's remaining shares. Furthermore, it wouldn't take long for those shares to fall into Hua Xiqian's pockets. Secondly, she didn't want to get involved in this mess with Suyu. It wasn't easy for her and Mr. Qin to return to how loving they used to be. She didn't want to do anything that would make Mr. Qin upset. Therefore, Hua Min rejected her without hesitation. Hua Yanyan looked at Hua Min's back, crestfallen. She never thought that she would one day be in such dire straits. She actually envied Hua Min. She used to mock her for being poor, for being a bastard, for being a child without a father. Now, she had a father and money, but her life was worse than a dog's. On the other hand, Hua Min could openly marry Qin Chu and be loved by Suyu. Anyone would go crazy with jealousy for a woman like her, right? After Hua Min finished talking to Hua Yanyan, she was about to head downstairs when Hua Xiqian's secretary stopped her. Miss Hua, the president is waiting for you. What is it? I'm not sure, you'll find out when you go in. The female secretary smiled. Every time Hua Min came to the Hua Corporation, Hua Xiqian would always force her into the office. She didn't even bother to knock on the door, so she pushed it open and walked in. Hua Xiqian was signing documents for the finance department. Okay, sign these first, you can leave. Yes, President Hua. Come sit down. Hua Xiqian waved his hand and smiled at Hua Min. Just tell me what you want. I have to go to GK in a bit. Hua Xiqian looked at Hua Min and said meaningfully, I don't think you should wear a low-cut shirt today. Huh? Since when did you like to comment on my clothes? Hua Min was amused. Don't tell me you don't know what's on your neck? Upon hearing Hua Xiqian's words, Hua Min froze. She was in a hurry to make breakfast this morning, so she didn't look at herself in the mirror. Upon hearing what he said, she immediately ran to the mirror on the other side of the room and looked at herself. Then, her face immediately turned red. There was a strawberry mark on her neck. Oh my God, this was so embarrassing. Mr. Qin was so mean, he didn't tell her this morning. She even walked around in front of the maids and Uncle Li. Wasn't this a blatant display of affection? So that brother-in-law of mine. Has he become so domineering now? He has to put a label on you at all times. Afraid that someone will take you away? Hua Xiqian placed his finger on his temple and looked at Hua Min with a half-smile. Chapter 961. Do you need something? If you have something to say, just say it. If not, I'm leaving. Hua Min truly felt that it was too perverted to talk about such a private topic with Hua Xiqian. He decided not to respond. Look at you, you're so patient and calm with everyone else. Why is it that when it comes to me, your older brother, you're like a barrel of gunpowder, ready to explode at any moment? That's because you're like gasoline, easily flammable and explosive, Hua Xiqian. Hua Min's evaluation of him couldn't be any weirder. Fine, you have a point, but I'm about to help you get rid of your stumbling block. Can't you sincerely thank me? After you succeed, I'll bring canned melon seeds and ham sausages to your door to thank you. Hua Xiqian. What the hell was canned melon seeds and ham sausages? Hua Xiqian was completely dumbfounded. Hua Min, you really are a weirdo. I've met countless people, but I've never met someone like you. Hua Xiqian was both angry and amused. That means you're still ignorant. That's right, the world is full of strange things. I suspect that you're a mutant from the Jurassic era. Hua Xiqian gave a pertinent comment. So you asked me to come to your office just to talk nonsense with you? Hua Min was losing his patience. Talking nonsense depends on my mood. Not everyone can talk nonsense with me. So you want me to take 2 feet of floral cloth and make you open crotch pants? Hua Min truly felt that if he didn't make Hua Xiqian angry at him a few times, he would always smile at him. As expected, floral cloth and open crotch pants. These words completely enraged Hua Xiqian. He quickly dialed the internal line and said, see him out. Goodbye. Hua Min proudly walked out of President Hua's office with a smug smile on his face. Hua Xiqian was left speechless. He now understood that anyone who could fall in love with a monster like Hua Min was also a monster. For example, Tsundra Qin, Tyrannical Su, and him, Psycho Hua. If the 4 of them got together to play mahjong one day, the scene would be spectacular. The scenario in his mind could be as follows. 70,000. Hua Min played a card. Your previous player, Su Yu, just finished playing 70,000. Hua Xiqian reminded him. That's right. It's because he offered 70,000 that you guys didn't want it. That's why I offered 70,000. But didn't you say that we have to keep an eye on the next player when playing cards? Why don't you fight with the next family instead of fighting with the previous one? Hua Xiqian tried his best to persuade Hua Mian. He thinks that I'm too handsome, elegant, and charming. So why would he target a lowly person like you? Of course he wants to follow in my footsteps, Su Yu said. Okay, then I'll eat. Hua Xiqian picked up the 70,000 and was about to eat it. Qin Chu, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly said, touch. Hua Xiqian. Why didn't you touch Su Yu's 70,000 just now? Why did you touch Hua Min's? Hua Xiqian was confused again. As long as it's Mion's, anything is fine. Mr. Qin doted on his wife. He had already reached the point of qi deviation. Damn it, I'm done. I can't play mahjong anymore. You guys aren't here to play mahjong. You're here to torture me. Hua Xiqian was still immersed in his fantasy of a 4-player mahjong game. Hua Min, on the other hand, drove to GK headquarters. He hadn't been here in a while, so the people there were still very warm towards a young lady. They weren't affected by the negative news at all. When Hua Min walked into the office, Qin Chu was still in the conference room. Yang sensibly poured her a glass of milk. A young lady. Please wait for a moment, the president is still in a meeting. Okay. Hua Min casually sat down on the sofa and waited. Just then his phone rang. She glanced at it and saw that it was Qin Chu's phone. It seemed like he didn't bring it into the conference room. She didn't want to pick it up, but when she saw that it was Song Yisher, she immediately changed her mind. Hello. Hua Min picked up. Song Yisher was obviously surprised. She didn't expect Hua Min to pick up. Is Qin Chu there? You can talk to me if you have something to say, Hua Min replied bluntly. Chapter 962. I'm sorry, Hua Min. It's not convenient for me to talk to you about this. Song Yisher's tone was still as gentle as ever. Hua Min was annoyed that she was always so pretentious. Even if you talk to him later, he'll still talk to me. It's all the same, Hua Min replied confidently. Ha! I wouldn't have known if you didn't tell me. You guys don't give each other any privacy. I didn't know that couples in China get along like this. No wonder the divorce rate is so high. What do you mean by that? Hua Min was a little angry. Oh. I'm just saying, don't think too much. Hua Min, I don't mean anything by it. I just think that couples should respect each other and have privacy. After all, you can't invade each other's space. You guys are two individuals. You don't have to depend on each other, right? I understand that. But the problem is, why do we need an outsider to explain how we get along? Also, it's your business how close you are with Qin Chu's parents, but don't think that you're already a part of the Qin family. Sometimes, people have to know their place. Before Song Yisher could say anything, Qin Chu pushed open the door and walked in. Here, your phone. Hua Min handed it over. Who is it? He asked. Miss Song, Hua Min emphasized on her name. Qin Chu took the phone and asked faintly, what's up? Qin Chu. My mom just came back from Yanzi Lake and caught a lot of fresh fish. Don't you like fish? Mrs. Qin said you've always loved to eat them, so my mom asked the maids to make a lot of them. Some are steamed, some are braised, some are boiled, and some are stewed. Dad said he wanted to invite you to our house. Before Song Yisher could finish her words, Qin Chu rejected her directly. Thank Uncle Song for me. I won't be eating. I've already promised my wife that I'll accompany her for the next few days. Oh, I see, another day then. Actually, you can bring Mian along, Song Yisher added. No, she doesn't like fish, and I rarely eat it. Thank you for your kindness. Then, Qin Chu hung up the phone. Do you like to eat fish? Hua Min didn't know that Qin Chu had this hobby. She always had dinner with Gao Ran and Zhu Lingling, but why didn't she realize that Mr. Qin liked fish? That was a long time ago. There was one time when my dad and I came back from fishing. Then, we steamed a fish in the microwave. I felt that it was quite fresh, so I ate a lot. My mom thought that I liked to eat fish. From then on, we often had fish at home. I see. Hua Min nodded. Have you been waiting for a long time? Qin Chu reached out his hand and lovingly rubbed her face with the back of his hand. No, I just got here a few minutes ago. What do you want to eat for lunch? Qin Chu asked. I don't know, but I know that Ling Ling is on vacation today. I think she's meeting with Gao Ran. Should we go and ruin their date? Hua Min smirked. Honey, do you really think it's a good idea to do that? Qin Chu couldn't help but laugh. What's wrong with that? Let's go. I heard from Ling Ling that they're eating roast duck on Chang'an Avenue. Let's give them a chance encounter. Then before Qin Chu could say anything, Hua Min excitedly grabbed Qin Chu's hand and walked out. Like a little kid, they jogged down the street. All the employees were dumbfounded by what they saw. At a roast duck restaurant on Chang'an Avenue, when Hua Min and Qin Chu went upstairs, they immediately saw Gao Ran and Zhu Lingling sitting by the bed. They seemed to be sweetly talking about something. Hua Min quietly walked up behind Zhu Lingling and suddenly patted her on the back. Ah! Zhu Lingling was so scared that she immediately screamed. Gao Ran was so angry that he was about to pull out his gun. However, when she looked up and saw Hua Min and Qin Chu, she immediately fell silent. Why are you guys here? What a coincidence. The two of you. Hua Min deliberately smiled. Gao Ran and Zhu Lingling immediately felt awkward, as if they were caught cheating. Chapter 963. Zhu Lingling, why didn't you invite me when there was good food? Hua Min asked angrily on purpose. Oh. I'm on leave today. Gao Ran said there's a good roast duck restaurant here, so he brought me here to try it. Gao Ran, you're so rich. Why didn't you invite me to roast duck? Aren't you guys buddies? Hua Min purposely looked at Gao Ran and asked. Gao Ran immediately coughed dryly. Ahem. Isn't Mr. Qin busy? I heard that there's a New Year's Eve party, so I didn't invite him. You didn't even ask me. How did you know I was busy? You're amazing. Qin Chu quietly looked at Gao Ran and added insult to injury. Gao Ran immediately felt even more awkward. Hey, come on, let's eat together. Zhu Lingling immediately stood up and gave up her seat. She wanted to change the subject so that it wouldn't be awkward anymore. You guys are getting along well. You can even eat roast duck together? Hua Min continued to stir up trouble. Zhu Lingling. Ahem. Gao Ran. Ahem. Honey, what are you talking about? How could they reconcile? I bet they're going to split the cost of roast duck, right? Qin Chu purposely said. Yeah, we're going to split the cost. Gao Ran is such a stingy cop. How could he treat me? Zhu Lingling, why are you adding insult to injury? Gao Ran looked wronged. She was the one who said she wanted to eat roast duck, and he said he would treat her, so the two of them hit it off. However, after Qin Chu and Hua Min attacked them, they split the cost of roast duck. What a joke. I didn't. That's how it is. Don't make it sound like we're close friends. We're just paying our own way. Zhu Lingling kept blinking at Gao Ran, afraid that he wouldn't understand. Gao Ran was also helpless. In the end, he lowered his head dejectedly and didn't say anything. At this time, the roast duck was served. Hua Min was also hungry. He rolled up a biscuit and was about to eat it when he suddenly changed direction. She brought it to Qin Chu's lips. Hubby, try it. Thank you, my wife. Are you two really here to eat roast duck? Aren't you here to show off your love? Gao Ran looked at the Qin clan couple with eager eyes. Hua Min laughed. Nonsense, we're all hungry. How can we be in the mood to show off our love? Hubby, you should eat. It's a waste not to eat. Girl, do you think we're idiots? Can't you two be more mindful of your status? You're a god-level tycoon, but you want to make us poor? Zhu Lingling complained. Because Hua Min ate too quickly, there was a bit of sauce on the corner of his mouth. Qin Chu took out a tissue from the side and gently wiped it off for her. Zhu Lingling and Gao Ran looked at him with envy and jealousy. Lingling, the man you told me about on WeChat yesterday, how are things going between you two? Hua Min asked in all seriousness. Zhu Lingling was instantly dumbfounded. Me? The one who said he chased after you like crazy and gave you 99 roses. Hua Mian added another stab at Hua Mian. At this moment, Gao Ran's face was ashen. Zhu Lingling, I didn't know you were so popular. I didn't. Listen to me, girl. You're not here to eat roast duck. You're here to trick me, aren't you? Only then did Zhu Lingling realize that she didn't talk to Hua Min about a man last night. Recently, other than Gao Ran, she didn't talk to anyone else on WeChat. Hua Min was a classic example of slandering someone. Before Zhu Lingling could explain herself, Qin Chu looked at Gao Ran and asked, "How are you and the policewoman you took in? Didn't you say you met her parents?" Gao Ran. Which policewoman? He didn't know how to react. Are there many? Qin Chu asked back. Gao Ran. Zhu Lingling gritted her teeth as she glared at him. She wanted to tear him apart. I swear to God. There's no policewoman. I've been so tired from being on duty lately. There are so many missions, Gao Ran immediately explained with a bitter face. In the end, Qin Chu and Hua Min laughed arrogantly. Only then did they realize that they had fallen into a trap. Are you two done fooling around? Gao Ran glared at Mr. and Mrs. Qin, his teeth itching. That's too much. It's bad enough that you're torturing us single people. How dare you trick us? Zhu Lingling was also furious. Who told you two to date in secret? Actually, it's normal for you two to have an affair, but you won't admit it. I can't stand it. Is it that hard to admit that you're in a relationship? Hua Min said as he ate. The two of them looked at each other and fell silent. So please answer my wife, did you two sleep together? Qin Chu asked in all seriousness. Chapter 964. Hua Min thought her husband was going to ask her if she was in a relationship. Instead, he directly asked if she had slept with him. It was like a bolt from the blue. Honey, aren't you being too direct? Hua Min couldn't stop laughing. Gao Ran and Zhu Lingling froze for a long time, unable to say anything. After a while, Gao Ran glanced at Qin Chu and said, "You've been led astray by your wife. She's always talking about sex." Ha ha ha. Hua Min hadn't laughed so heartily in a long time. She burst out laughing when she heard Gao Ran's comments about Mr. Qin. The smell of oil splattered everywhere. Qin Chu quietly took out a tissue and continued to wipe his wife's face. I just want to ask, can we still eat roast duck happily? Zhu Lingling looked at Hua Min pitifully. Of course we can. If you two tell us the truth, we'll continue eating. Otherwise, we'll continue to interrogate you. You don't even interrogate criminals like this. Gao Ran was full of resentment. So, judging by your unsatisfied look, you haven't gotten what you wanted yet? Qin Chu looked at Gao Ran and asked. Gao Ran. Oh, I know. Last time at the hotel, Gao Ran, it seems like you didn't get anything good out of her. Hua Min suddenly understood. Girl, you've been led astray. You're not pure anymore. Zhu Lingling looked at Hua Min and pouted. So, did you two get together or not? Gao Ran. Zhu Lingling. Qin Chu looked out the window and saw the bright sun. Suddenly he said, let's do it today. After eating roast duck, you two can go straight to the Ritz-Carlton. I'll ask them to reserve a presidential suite for you two. Then, I'll ask the waitress to prepare some fresh flowers and red wine for you. Mr. Qin was extremely generous. And condoms. Basic precautions are still necessary, Hua Min added. Goodbye. Goodbye. Gao Ran and Zhu Lingling said their goodbyes and were about to leave. Hua Min grabbed her arm and said, Haha, I won't tease you anymore. Sit down. Honey, why are you pulling me away? Do you know that you're holding me up? They're in a hurry to say goodbye because they're in a hurry to go to the hotel. So that's how it is. That's enough, you two. Can't you stop for a roast duck at noon? Gao Ran was speechless. That's right, that's right. Haven't you been caught in an affair recently? And aren't you still at the heart of the storm when you testified for Suyu? You're really big-hearted. You even came out to eat roast duck. I think your hearts added together are bigger than roast duck. Zhu Lingling cursed. Hua Min pursed his lips and smiled. Only when we're big-hearted can we live freely. We don't care about anything else. Okay, that's the end of the topic. Let's eat before it gets cold. Gao Ran was the one who said this. How romantic would it have been if they had eaten roast duck, however? The Qin clan couple had ruined everything. Gao Ran was quite frustrated. Otherwise, he would have taken Zhu Lingling to the movies after lunch. Are you guys going back to the company after lunch? Gao Ran purposely asked. No, We don't have anything going on today. We'll go wherever you guys go, Huamin replied. Huamin, you can't do this. You guys don't know the suffering of the starving. You're done being lovey-dovey, so you're trying to ruin other people's lives. That's immoral, right? So, are you taking her to a hotel? If you are, we won't follow you. Otherwise, we'll follow you to the end. Huamin said. Zhu Lingling angrily stood up and said, Stupid cop, let's go, I'll take you to a hotel. Sit down first, don't be impulsive. Gao Ran immediately tried to persuade her. No, we'll go right now. I'll see if they can still follow us. We're not going to that Carlton, I'll treat you to a small hotel. A small hotel doesn't have good soundproofing, right? Huamin laughed. It's better if the soundproofing isn't good. We can eavesdrop from next door. Especially from next door. It's so exciting. Gao Ran, Huamin, Qin Chu, if you guys have the guts to play, then don't be a coward. Let's get 2 rooms together. You guys can stay next door and see who can stay longer. Do you have the guts? Zhu Lingling was even more ferocious than a Manchurian tiger. Ahem. Venomous Tongue Ling. Don't fucking act like a tiger. Sit down. Gao Ran secretly pulled her hand. Hua Mian was also dumbfounded. She was just wondering what to say to that. Then Mr. Qin slowly said, Good idea. Then, everyone was dumbfounded. Including Zhu Lingling. She was just bragging, okay? She didn't think that Qin Chu would be so terrifying. Chapter 965. Mr. Qin, I was just bragging, haha. Zhu Lingling backed down at this critical moment. But I took it seriously. Qin Chu looked serious. Huamin, can't you control your man? Are you trying to push him to his death? Zhu Lingling looked at Huamin, wanting to cry but having no tears. She clearly wanted to ask for help. In this world, the only person who could suppress Qin Chu was Huamin. Honey. Ahem. Let's stop teasing them. Let's go home. Huamin saw that the sharp-tongued couple couldn't take it anymore, so he decided to stop teasing them. Hua Mian and Qin Chu secretly ate roast duck, but the 2 of them ruined it. It wasn't easy for them. Huamin wiped his mouth with a napkin, pulled Qin Chu up, and stood up. Thank you for the roast duck, Huamin said with a smile. Hero, goodbye. Gao Ran cupped his hands, making Huamin burst into laughter again. Huamin was still laughing when they walked out of the roast duck restaurant. Honey, don't you think what we did was a little too immoral? They'll probably cuss us behind our backs. Qin Chu smiled but didn't say anything. In the afternoon, Huamin and Qin Chu returned to GK headquarters. Qin Chu was on official business, so Huamin casually strolled around. Then, he ran into Annie Liang, whom he hadn't seen in a while. She had just accepted an endorsement deal for a certain cell phone. She was shooting a 5-minute commercial for the cell phone, and a dozen or so people were busying themselves. When Huamin walked in, everyone immediately greeted him. A young lady. Huamin nodded at her. Annie Liang immediately walked over and handed her a bottle of green tea. A young lady, have some water. Thank you. Huamin received the green tea and looked at it casually. A young lady, I haven't seen you in the company for a long time. Yes, I've been quite busy recently. How are you? I heard that the company has accepted many endorsements for you. Yes, there's a mobile phone, 2 new clothes for next spring, and a mobile game. That's not bad. Work hard. Thank you, a young lady. Oh right, a young lady. Do you have some history with Jiang Linyue? Annie Liang suddenly asked. A little. Huamin didn't avoid the topic. Oh. I signed with the company because of her. One of her cousins is a friend of mine. I don't know much about her, but a few days ago, she kept calling me, asking me to talk to her and ask her to come back to work here. But, you know, I don't really care about personal grudges. Plus, I think a young lady is smart, so there must be a reason for you to transfer her away. That's why I haven't agreed to her request. I think it's because she's not very sensible, and it's making a young lady feel bad. She's not very sensible, Huamin slowly said as he took a sip of his green tea. A young lady, don't worry, I'm not someone who forgets my roots. Since you're willing to give me a chance to make a name for myself, I naturally won't help those boring people. A young lady. Please don't think of me as the same person because of those people. After all, I'm not on the same path as them. I just want to make money for the company. Okay. Hua Min nodded. Annie Liang's meaning was obvious. She wanted Hua Min to know that although she was introduced to the company by Zhang Linyue, she didn't have a good relationship with Zhang Linyue. Therefore, she hoped that Hua Min wouldn't take his anger out on her. The truth was, Annie Liang was overthinking things. Hua Min had almost forgotten about Zhang Linyue's existence. Ever since Song Yisher came back, Hua Min finally saw what a true master was like. That woman was a ruthless character who could kill without leaving a trace, but she always liked to play the role of a little lamb. At 6 p.m., Qin Chu got off work as usual, and the two of them drove back to Sky Blessing Court. Hua Mian wanted to expose the rumors of a divorce in front of her mother. Yang Meirong was immediately relieved when she saw that the two of them were as loving as ever. She even prepared dinner for them. When they got home after dinner, it was actually snowing. This was the first snowfall in this city since the beginning of winter. The snowflakes were huge and they slowly drifted down. In front of South Hill Manor, Qin Chu parked his Maybach and got out of the car with Hua Min. What beautiful snowflakes! Hua Min looked up at the sky, and the white snow in the night added a romantic touch to the scene. Qin Chu held onto Hua Min's hand and slowly said, "They all say that when it snows, you should go out with the person you like, because if you're not careful, you won't be able to grow old together." Upon hearing this, Hua Min turned around to look at Qin Chu. His tall figure stood in front of him, covered in snow. "Mr. Qin, can I invite you to go out with me for a walk?" Hua Min asked with a smile. Chapter 966. "Then I'll reluctantly agree, Mrs. Qin." Qin Chu lovingly patted her head. Just like that, the two of them didn't enter the house. Instead, they turned around and strolled around South Hill Manor in the snow. 7 years had passed, and it snowed a lot every winter here. However, Hua Min had never felt as artistic as he did today. Perhaps it was because the people around him were different. Qin Chu held her hand, and his palm was still warm. Like an old couple, they quietly walked in the snow. Even if they didn't say anything, they wouldn't feel awkward. In the depths of their love, Hua Min took out his phone and took a selfie with Qin Chu's face. The two of them were wearing white winter clothes, and in such a snowy day, they captured the most beautiful moment. Then, Hua Min sent a WeChat message, "If you don't leave me, I'll be with you until the end of my life." Hua Min's Photoshop skills were terrible, and every time he took a photo, he would whiten it and post it. Therefore, the two of them looked very similar in person. However, because of their good looks, it made sense no matter how the photo was taken. "Wow sis, you and brother-in-law are so good-looking," Jixin commented from New Zealand. "Although you're obviously trying to suck up to me, I like it very much," Hua Min jokingly replied. "Don't miss this. Everyone take a look. The Qin clan couple is abusing single people again," Gao Ran said. "I'm dying of jealousy. I'm dying of jealousy." This phrase is from 3 years ago, right? Zhu Lingling asked. "You're jealous, right?" "What? Aren't you going to ask Mr. Gao to say the same to you?" Hua Min replied. Gao Ran immediately sensibly replied to Zhu Lingling, "If you don't leave me, I'll definitely dive." "Fuck off." Zhu Lingling cursed without hesitation. This pair of clowns really brought a lot of joy to Hua Min. At this moment, Jiang Xiaowei commented below, "Do you want to skip the wedding with us on New Year's Day? I don't think you two have done it before." "There's no hurry. We're already legal. We don't care about formalities." Hua Min smiled. "So, are you going to hold the 1-month-old celebration and the wedding together after your little bun is born?" Jiang Xiaowei asked. That's a good idea. I'll think about it." It was rare for Hua Min to be in such a good mood. He took out his phone and replied while reading aloud to Qin Chu. The two of them walked in the snow for a very long time. When Jiang Xiaowei was commenting, she was actually in the villa, eating hot pot with Su Yu, Tang Chuan, and Wei Liao. Everyone suggested having hot pot, but it was snowing outside and Jiang Xiaowei didn't like to move. In the end, the 3 men decided to give in to her, so they ate at Wei Liao's villa. This was Wei Liao's private villa. Originally, they were going to buy a new place for their wedding, but Jiang Xiaowei liked this place. So they temporarily stayed here. There were 2 maids, a driver, and a gardener at home. Overall, Everything was standard. Wei Liao went to the nearby supermarket and bought a lot of hot pot ingredients. The four of them sat around the fireplace and ate hot pot. The atmosphere was originally quite beautiful, however, after Hua Min sent him a WeChat message, Suyu obviously fell silent. Xiaowei's phone was the most advanced 6P model on the market. It had a huge screen. When she put it on the table, Suyu happened to see it. He originally thought that it was a selfie taken by Hua Min, so he grabbed the phone and took a look. However, after he saw it, he silently put the phone down. His depressed expression was obvious. Ahem. You're just looking for trouble, Tang Chuan coughed lightly. Since this topic was brought up, Jiang Xiaowei interrupted. Actually, don't be fooled by how cold-blooded Hua Min is. She seems like she doesn't care about anything, but deep down, she cares a lot about the people and things she cares about. Qin Chu is someone she set her mind on when she was young. Although they've been on and off all these years and their path hasn't been easy, the good thing is that they've persevered. They've faced all kinds of uncertainties in the outside world, but I think it's not easy. After all, she's only 24 years old. No one can expect her to be as calm and mature as a middle-aged woman. However, the person that Hua Min set her mind on should be very lucky, because she's a typical stubborn person. If she likes someone, she'll like him for the rest of her life. Jiang Xiaowei's words made the originally depressed Suyu even more depressed. He put down his chopsticks, picked up the beer beside him, and took a big gulp. Ha! Slightly. Do you want some fish balls? I'll get you one. Wei Liao wanted Jiang Xiaowei to change the topic. However, she suddenly turned to look at Suyu and asked, So, aren't you tired of your one-sided love for Hua Min? Especially when you see that she's deeply in love with someone else, do you really not want to give up? Chapter 967. Slightly. Wei Liao seemed to want to stop her. Lord Su's heart was already hurting enough, but Jiang Xiaowei's words unintentionally stabbed Suyu in the heart. Don't interrupt, let Suyu answer. He's a man, you don't have to protect him like you protect a woman, Jiang Xiaowei said word by word. Ahem. Sis-in-law, you're mighty and domineering. Tang Chuan gave her a thumbs up. Suyu raised his head and slowly said, Of course I'm tired. I'm not Jesus. I'm not that pretentious. Sometimes, I feel like giving without expecting anything in return is stupid. Of course, I want Hua Min to be by my side. But it's not that simple. I like her, and it's my own business. I didn't cause her any trouble, and I didn't force myself to interfere or ruin her relationship. I think I'm being magnanimous. Plus, to be honest, when I fell in love with her, I didn't know she was married. No one wants to be a third party, and I, Suyu, don't lack women, so I don't have to think about a married woman. But the problem is that my heart has to be obedient. I've told myself more than once that I should give up because I don't stand a chance, but I realized that every time I made up my mind, my heart would hurt even more. In the end, I decided to like her openly. You all know that I like Hua Min, the whole world knows that I like her, and she knows that I like her. This is good. Even though she doesn't belong to me, my love isn't cheap, and it's not perverted. At least I've never thought of taking advantage of her, and at least I've never racked my brains to ruin her relationship, right? After Suyu finished speaking, the other three fell silent. What he said was the truth. Then, Suyu continued, Actually, you guys don't have to sympathize with me or pity me. I think it's really rare to find someone who can make you forget yourself and fall in love with her. Not everyone is lucky enough to meet someone like that. So, even if Hua Min and I don't have anything to do with each other, I'll still feel good. That's all really. I don't ask for too much, that's all. I'm already satisfied. Once in a while, he would see her and pay attention to the words she wrote on Weibo. He would also hear about her through his friends. That was good. Suyu felt that people shouldn't be too greedy. She would give him what he deserved, and he shouldn't force what he shouldn't. So this was it. He was convinced. Convinced that the heavens were playing with him on purpose, arranging this fatal encounter for him. Lord Su. Tang Chuan's eyes were filled with tears. Even a man like him was moved to tears. Don't fucking mess with me. I'm not going to die. Let's drink, let's drink. Suyu smiled bitterly, picked up the beer bottle, and continued to drink with Tang Chuan and the others. Jiang Xiaowei didn't have the same arrogance as before. She didn't say anything. To be honest, She wanted to take the opportunity to persuade Suyu to give up. However, after he said what he said, she felt that it made sense. As long as it didn't endanger Hua Min's interests, it wasn't wrong for him to like her. Also, forcing Suyu to forget Hua Min's words was a little cruel. Jiang Xiaowei looked at the screen on her phone. Hua Min was smiling happily beside Qin Chu. After 7 years, Qin Chu was still able to find Hua Min. To them, this was already the greatest gift from God. After Gao Ran watched a movie with Zhu Lingling, they went shopping for a while. Zhu Lingling was a typical shopaholic. She never went shopping empty-handed. Even if she didn't buy anything, she would force herself to buy some underwear home. This had become a bad habit. That was why she didn't have much savings these years. In Wanda Plaza, the two strolled around casually after watching a movie. There's a new model. It looks good. Zhu Lingling stood in front of a luxury bag and looked at a long wallet. Although it was just a wallet, the price tag was as high as 10,800 yuan. She already had more than N bags, more than Hua Min. However, she still kept on buying. As long as it was within her means, Hua Min called her a bag addict. "Waiter, wrap this up," Gao Ran said as he reached for his wallet. No, I don't need you. I'll do it myself." Zhu Lingling immediately took out her wallet. To be honest, she didn't want Gao Ran to pay at all. Chapter 968. "No, use mine," Gao Ran insisted. The two of them were in a stalemate when the waitress tactfully took Gao Ran's ICBC card. It was Gao Ran's salary card. "Let this gentleman do it." The waitress smiled and took the card from Gao Ran's hand. Damn it. This whole thing. Zhu Lingling felt extremely awkward. Cough cough. "Stinky cop, I really can't let you spend money. When we ate the roast duck today, you already spent more than $700. Those two bastards were obviously super rich, but they ran away after eating. They must be drunk. We can't afford to hurt them." Zhu Lingling jokingly complained about how Hua Min and Qin Chu ran away after eating. Gao Ran chuckled. "It's okay, I'll go to Boss Qin's house and get a bottle of good wine. It's worth a year of my salary." "I already said that your salary is low. Can you stop pretending?" "It's okay. It's only 10,000 yuan. Ahem. 2 months' salary is enough." Gao Ran was too embarrassed to tell her his salary. As the captain of the criminal police, his salary was indeed only 5,000 yuan. Civil servants seemed to be very popular, but their actual salary was very low. If Zhu Lingling flew a few long flights, she would earn more than 20,000 yuan a month. In conclusion, the stewardess completely outshone him, a public servant. "Oh my, you make it sound so pitiful." No. It's only half a month's salary. Let me do it." Zhu Lingling turned around and was about to walk towards the cashier, but Gao Ran grabbed her by the collar and pulled her back. "Calm down. It's not easy for me to give you something. Just take it. I'm so stingy. Who knows when I'll give you something next time." After hearing what Gao Ran said, Zhu Lingling was actually quite happy. Gao Ran wasn't stingy at all. His family was also very rich. It was just that he was quite frugal. His colleagues were all from ordinary families, so he never pretended to be rich. His salary was enough for him to spend. Because he ate and lived at home, the company also subsidized him. Therefore, he didn't spend much of his annual salary. He still had enough money to buy a bag for Zhu Lingling. After buying the bags, the two of them walked out and got into Gao Ran's Jaguar. "You have a shift tomorrow, right? I'll send you back," Gao Ran said. "You're going back so early?" Zhu Lingling seemed a little disappointed. "What else can we do? Are you really planning to go to a small hotel with me?" Gao Ran teased with a smile. "Get lost. Who wants to go to a motel with you? I was just trying to piss off Qin Chu and the others. In the end, Mr. Qin almost played us both." Gao Ran sighed. "Yeah, that's why Qin Chu is not only arrogant, but he's also two-faced. Only someone as smart as Hua Mian can deal with him. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to keep up with his thoughts. Yeah, they're like turtles looking at green beans." Gao Ran cursed as he vented his anger. Ha! Zhu Lingling laughed like a demon. When Gao Ran started the car, he casually put it in gear and accidentally touched Zhu Lingling's hand. The moment their skin touched, sparks flew everywhere. Zhu Lingling felt as if she was burned by something, so she immediately pulled her hand back nervously. Gao Ran also felt a little awkward, so he immediately pulled his hand back. The atmosphere became even more awkward. Zhu Lingling looked out the car window. Just like Hua Min, she deliberately changed the topic. It's snowing. The snowflakes are so beautiful. Gao Ran nodded silently. Yeah, there are several types of snowflakes. Really? Zhu Lingling asked in surprise. Yeah, there's snowflake raw wheat, snowflake pure life, snowflake silver, snowflake brave to the end of the world, and snowflake big green bottle. Gao Ran, you piece of shit. Zhu Lingling glared at him angrily. It was such a romantic moment, but it was shattered by his comical spirit. You're the fucking captain of the city's criminal police department? I really think you're a clown sent by monkeys, Zhu Lingling scolded. Late at night. In an abandoned factory in the suburbs, a middle-aged man with a scar on his face stared at a photo for a long time. The photo was of a pretty woman wearing a white lab coat and glasses. You look good, and you're young. Too bad. There are too many people who want you dead. The scarred man smiled coldly. Chapter 969. The next morning, after resting leisurely for 2 days, Hua Mian finally returned to work. When Hua Min arrived at Southside in the morning, he immediately went to see Ni Yang in the VIP room because he had just undergone a liver transplant. Xia Wan, who had donated her liver, was also receiving treatment in the next room. As for Shuai Shuai, Hua Min hired a cook to take care of him. How's he doing? Hua Min asked his manager, Sister Ingzi, who was standing guard at the door. A young lady. Ni Yang's surgery went very well. The chief surgeon said that he'll be under observation after he wakes up. If everything goes well, he'll be discharged in half a month. After he's discharged, GK won't accept any jobs for him for 3 months. He can occasionally take photos, appear on magazine covers, or do interviews. During these 3 months, let Ni Yang recover and don't worry about his popularity falling. GK will let him attend many events. Thank you, a young lady, you're so thoughtful. Sister Ingzi smiled slowly. Hua Min didn't want to interfere with GK Film and Television's business, but he took extra care of Ni Yang. He was just like Xixin, as heartwarming as his little brother. Plus, Ni Yang was much more pitiful than Xixin. It wasn't easy for him to become an idol. Ni Yang was still in a deep sleep. Hua Min gave a few instructions to the nurses and then went to Xia Wan's room next door. She was fine. She had just woken up and her complexion was a little pale. The nurse was giving her an anti-inflammatory injection. Dr. Hua, Xia Wan said, looking haggard. Miss Xia, how are you feeling? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Xia Wan gently shook her head. No, I'm fine. That's good. Ni Yang, how is he? She asked worriedly. He's fine. The surgery went smoothly. Don't worry. Okay, that's good. Upon hearing this, Xia Wan felt as if a rock had been lifted from her heart. Don't worry about Shuai Shuai. I've already hired a maid to cook for him, wash his clothes, and take care of him. Just stay here and rest. He'll come see you after school, Hua Min reminded her. Okay. Then rest well. If you need anything, ask the nurses to call me. Okay. Hua Min paid for Xia Wan's son. Shuai Shuai's kidney transplant as well as Ni Yang's hospital. He didn't touch the Hua Foundation, nor did he report it to GK. Instead, he quietly took out millions of yuan. Because she felt that it was worth it. She wasn't a busybody, but since she was going to do it, she had to do it until the end. Zhu Lingling had asked her before that Ni Yang was very rich himself, so there was no need for her to pay for the surgery. Hua Mian Hua, and Hua, to treat him like a little brother. Hua Mian Hua wasn't just talking about siblings. Most of the time, she had to put herself in Hua Mian's shoes. If you treat me well, I'll return the favor 10 times over. Ni Yang once stubbornly gave up on Imperial Star and signed with GK, which caused a huge uproar. This was a rare incident in the entertainment industry. Ni Yang was at the peak of his career, and he could have rejected Hua Min's invitation. However, he didn't. He stepped up at the critical moment and helped Hua Min resolve the crisis. Hua Min would always remember Hua Min's kindness. When she returned to her office, her assistant said, Dr. Hua, someone wants to see you. Okay, let him in. Hua Min sat in her office, turned on her computer, and got ready to receive patients. Just then, a middle-aged man in his 30s walked in. He was wearing a black down jacket, and there was a hideous scar on the left side of his face. Hello, where are you feeling unwell? Hua Min asked in a formal tone. Dr. Hua Min, right? The man stared at Hua Min's face and asked faintly. I am. Hua Min looked up and saw the man looking at her strangely. Before she could say anything, the man suddenly covered her mouth and nose with a white handkerchief. Everything happened so quickly that Hua Min didn't even have time to think before she fainted. 5 minutes later, a middle-aged man with a scar on his face and a white lab coat walked out of Southside Recuperation Center with a giant woven bag in his hand. Chapter 970. Dr. Hua, there's another patient who's registered with you, but there's only 10 minutes left before lunch break. Do you still want to see her? Or do you want to see her in the afternoon? Reminded the assistant as she knocked on the door. Dr. Hua? The young nurse raised her voice and asked again, but there was still no response. She walked in curiously and pushed the door open. There was no one in the room. Ha! That's not right. Dr. Hua shouldn't have left the consultation room. The young nurse was very puzzled. She was on duty at the consultation desk, so she had to pass by here to receive patients. She didn't see Dr. Hua go downstairs or go upstairs. She was still there when the last patient came in. How could she disappear into thin air in less than 10 minutes? The young nurse found it very strange. She picked up her phone and called Hua Min's number. Sorry, the number you have dialed is switched off. Hua Min's phone was switched off. Ha! Her phone is switched off. Could it be out of battery? The young nurse walked to the consultation desk in confusion. She looked at the other nurses and asked, Did any of you see Dr. Hua? No. What's wrong? She's gone. Gone? That can't be. Did she go downstairs to eat in the cafeteria? No, if she went downstairs, I would definitely see her here. The assistant shook her head. Could she have changed into casual clothes to eat with her friends? That's why you didn't notice? I don't think so. If Dr. Hua went out, she would definitely tell me because she's not done seeing patients. Dr. Hua isn't an irresponsible person. She wouldn't leave the patient alone and go out to eat. The assistant had been working for Hua Min for more than a month. She seemed to understand her work attitude. She can't just disappear like that, right? Haha. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Make an announcement. Southside is so big. If Dr. Hua hears it, she'll definitely come back. Okay. Then, the assistant ran to the hospital's broadcasting room and the broadcaster broadcasted 3 consecutive messages. Dr. Hua Min from the neurology department. Please return to the office immediately if you hear this. Dr. Hua Min from the neurology department. If you can hear me, please come back to your office as soon as possible. Your assistant is looking for you. All colleagues, please pay attention. If you see Dr. Hua Min from the Department of Neurology, please call her back to her office. The broadcast repeated 3 times, but there was still no sign of Hua Min. More than an hour had passed, and the afternoon working hours had already begun. There was already a long line of people waiting to register. However, there was still no sign of Hua Min, which made the assistant nurse very anxious. Director Lee, you're finally here. The assistant nurse immediately rushed up to the director of the neurology department when she saw him. What happened? Director Lee frowned slightly. Dr. Hua is missing. The young nurse was frantic. Gone? How did she go missing? Tell me in detail. Director Lee knew that Hua Min wasn't an irresponsible person. If she had something to do, she would have asked for leave from her. She wouldn't have left without a word. Then the young nurse told her what happened. Director Lee, who was experienced and knowledgeable, also felt that something wasn't right. She turned around and said to her assistant, Xiaoi, go to the surveillance room and check the surveillance footage of Dr. Hua's office corridor. See if she went out. There's no way a person would disappear into thin air. I feel like something isn't right. Okay, Director Lee. 20 minutes later, Director Lee's assistant jogged back. How is it? Director Lee asked. Director. Oh no, I can't get the footage you wanted. You can't? What do you mean? Director Lee was slightly surprised. Chapter 971. I don't know what's going on, but since 10 a.m. this morning, my security footage started to malfunction. All the cameras stopped working, and I couldn't get the footage from Dr. Hua's office. What a coincidence. Director Lee felt that something was wrong. What should we do now, Director? Did something happen to Dr. Hua? Hua Min's assistant was so worried that she was about to cry. After being a nurse for so long, this was the first time she had seen a doctor disappear. It was too strange. Call the police. I think this is a bit strange. Director Lee pushed up her glasses and said in a serious tone. If we call the police, I think the police won't file a case if a person disappears within 24 hours. Director Lee's assistant reminded her. It's different. Dr. Hua has a special identity, so the police won't ignore him. Call the police. Then, Director Lee looked at Hua Min's assistant and said, Go to GK headquarters and notify Dr. Hua's lover, Mr. Qin Chuv. Okay, Director Lee. GK headquarters. Qin Chu had been looking at the 3D layout of the New Year's party in his office. Because GK was a big company, its every move was watched. Every year, other companies in the industry would fight to imitate the benefits, guests, and theme of the party. Therefore, he couldn't be careless this time. About an hour ago, his right eyelid started twitching crazily. There was a saying that the twitching of the left eye brought fortune, while the twitching of the right eye brought disaster. His right eye started twitching crazily without warning. He felt like it was a bad omen. Although he wasn't a superstitious person, he still felt uneasy for some reason. His finger left the mouse, and he picked up his phone to send a WeChat message. Honey, are you still busy? Have you had lunch? He didn't get a reply for a long time, so he anxiously called her again. Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently unavailable. It's off. Qin Chu raised his eyebrows, and his expression became serious. Hua Min rarely turned off his phone during the day, and when it ran out of battery, his assistant would charge it for him. Unless there was something special. He picked up his phone and called Hua Min's office, but no one picked up. Did he go to a restaurant for lunch? Is his phone charging? Qin Chu comforted himself. Just then, there was an urgent knock on the door. Come in. President Qin, the assistant from young Madam's Southside Recuperation Center, is here. He said he has something urgent to discuss with you, Little Yang said as he opened the door. Let her in. Qin Chu had a strong premonition that Hua Mian's assistant was here. Did something really happen to her? The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Hello, President Qin. I'm Dr. Hua's assistant, Xiao Ning. Director Lee asked me to tell you that Dr. Hua is missing. What do you mean? Qin Chu's heart skipped a beat. Something bad had indeed happened. Well, Dr. Hua disappeared into thin air from the hospital. We searched everywhere but couldn't find her, and the surveillance cameras are broken. Young Lady Lee said that something might have happened, and we've already called the police. Young Lady Lee asked me to tell you. When did this happen? Qin Chu asked, his face pale. About an hour ago. Did she see anyone suspicious before she disappeared? Qin Chu continued to ask calmly. Here's the thing, Mr. Qin. Dr. Hua saw a man who was registered with her. Then, the assistant roughly explained the situation to Qin Chu. He lowered his head and pondered for about 10 seconds. He repeatedly thought about the flaws in the situation, and then he slowly raised his head and asked, Do you remember what the last patient Dr. Hua saw looked like? Chapter 972. I can't remember, but I know it was a man. He kept his head down when he walked, so I didn't see him clearly. The assistant tried her best to recall, but she couldn't remember anything. There were a lot of patients, and she had been busy the entire time. Okay, I got it. You can go now. President Qin. Do you think something will happen to Dr. Hua? The assistant asked worriedly. I won't let anything happen to her, Qin Chu said, word for word. After the assistant left, Qin Chu's heart sank to the bottom. He was sure that Hua Min had been kidnapped, and the kidnapper was the last male patient they saw. However, the bad thing was that they had tampered with the hospital surveillance cameras, so no one noticed what the kidnapper looked like. However, he was sure that these people came prepared. They were here to kidnap Hua Min, and their target was her. Yang. Sir, what are your orders? Cancel all of my plans for the afternoon. I need to go out. Yes, sir. After walking out of GK headquarters, Chin Chu immediately called Gao Ran. Locate Hua Min's number for me right now. The sooner the better. What's wrong? Are you trying to catch me in the act? Gao Ran jokingly asked back. Hua Min was kidnapped. Chin Chu was in a bad mood, and his voice was deeper than usual. What? Kidnapping? Gao Ran was also dumbfounded when he heard this. Chin Chu didn't say anything. Chu, you're not joking, are you? Gao Ran couldn't believe it. How could Hua Min be kidnapped? I wouldn't joke about something like that, Chin Chu replied seriously. Indeed, Chin Chu could joke about a lot of things, but he would never joke about Hua Min's safety. To Chin Chu, this was taboo. Then, don't worry, I'll give you the location now. After speaking, Gao Ran immediately hung up the phone. Chin Chu was restless for the first time. He did not know who had kidnapped Hua Min, nor did he know where they had taken him. Would he be hurt? Would he be beaten up? In short, from the moment he found out that Hua Min had gone missing, he was already being dismembered every second. Chin Chu sat in the Maybach and smoked one cigarette after another. He never believed in gods. He only believed in himself. But this time he panicked. He was scared. He had already magnified his fear to the extreme. He did not dare to imagine what would happen to him if he lost Hua Min. He ruthlessly crushed the cigarette butt with his fingers. He looked ahead in despair. If there really are gods in this world, then I hope you can listen to me. Don't let anything happen to Mion. Otherwise, I will find her even if I have to go to hell. All of Chin Chu's years of calmness, wisdom, and arrogance had collapsed at this moment. All that was left was a husband who had lost his beloved wife. His eyes were filled with despair and helplessness. When Hua Min woke up again, she found that her eyes were covered with blindfolds. Her hands and hands were tied with strong ropes. Where am I? Is anyone here? She asked. You're awake. It was a man's voice. She immediately recognized that it was the male patient she had just received. His voice was very strange and easy to recognize. It's you? You're not my patient? Dr. Hua sure has a good memory. The man chuckled in a low voice. Who are you? Why did you kidnap me? Do you want a ransom? How much? After analyzing the fact that she had been kidnapped, Hua Min no longer panicked. Kidnapping was for money, so she planned to deal with them slowly. Ransom? Haha. No, we've already taken someone's money. This time, our mission is to kill you. Upon hearing this, Hua Min's heart sank. Not wanting money was the worst. This was probably the scariest kidnapper, right? But not now, because we still have a mission to complete. After speaking, the kidnapper dialed a number and handed it to Hua Min's ear. Tell your husband not to call the police. If he doesn't want you to die, tell him to come alone, the knife-scarred man said viciously. Chapter 973. As soon as the scar-faced man finished speaking, the call went through. Hello? Chin Chu's familiar voice came from the other end. Hearing Chin Chu's voice, Hua Min suddenly wanted to cry. However, she didn't say anything, not a single word. Because from what the kidnappers said, they didn't want money or ransom, they only wanted her life. Now they wanted her to call Chin Chu for only one reason, and that was to take Chin Chu's life. It was one thing for her to be captured, but she definitely wouldn't drag Mr. Chin down with her. Speak, the scar-faced man roared fiercely. On the other end of the line, Chin Chu's heart was in his throat. Mion, is that you? He asked gently, just wanting to make sure that she was still alive. Hua Min bit her lips and didn't say a word, because if she spoke, Chin Chu would definitely come. Bitch, speak. The scar-faced man slapped Hua Min across the face. Her fair cheeks immediately flushed red. Because he used too much force, dark red blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Even so, Hua Min still didn't say a word. Are you a fucking mute? I told you to speak to him. The scar-faced man had a bad temper, and he kicked Hua Min in the stomach again. Immediately, she felt a tearing pain in her lower abdomen. If she was a normal girl, she would probably be crying by now. However, Hua Min still didn't make a sound. Even though she was kicked to the ground and her body was in extreme pain, she still didn't make a sound. She bit her lips with all her might, because she knew that once Chin Chu heard her voice, He would do everything in his power to save her. If she didn't make a sound, Chin Chu wouldn't be able to confirm if she was really here, so he wouldn't come so easily. Perhaps he would even discuss a plan with Gao Ran. That way, it wouldn't be so dangerous. Her mind spun quickly, but she didn't say a word. Boss, this woman is too stubborn. She didn't say anything even after being beaten up like this. I guess she doesn't want her husband to take the risk, right? One of the men said. Seeing how stubborn she was, the scarred man did not waste any more time and picked up the phone from the ground. Mr. Chin, is it? Your wife is in my hands now. How much do you want? Chin Chu asked directly and calmly. It's not a matter of money now. I'm just taking someone's money to solve their problem. How about this? You come here, but don't call the police. Come alone. You and my employer can settle your personal grudge. If you don't come, we're going to dismember your wife tonight. From tomorrow onwards, you'll receive her body parts one after another. Don't touch her. I'll agree to any request. Okay, Mr. Chin is so straightforward. Time? Where? Chin Chu asked. We'll let you know later. After speaking, the scarred man hung up the phone. Then, he kicked Hua Min's body. Stupid woman, you're quite the character. You're really stubborn. But unfortunately, you're my employer's #1 enemy. I took the money so I had to do it. How much did they pay you? We'll pay you 3 times, Hua Min said weakly as she lay on the ground. Ha! Do you think we don't have morals in this line of work? Let me tell you. We only work for one employer. If we always betrayed our employer, how could we survive in this world for so long? We know you're rich, but I'm sorry, we've already taken someone else's money. You can only blame your own bad luck. Brothers, let's go eat. Then, the sound of footsteps gradually left. Hua Min lay in the abandoned factory. Because it was late winter, her body was emitting cold air. When she was kidnapped, she was only wearing a thin white lab coat. Gusts of bone-piercing cold wind blew past her, freezing her entire body. She didn't want to think about who wanted to deal with her. Instead, she prayed silently in her heart that Chin Chu wouldn't come alone. Otherwise, the two of them could die here. After Chin Chu received the call from the kidnappers, he felt much better. At least they were willing to contact him. At this time, Gao Ran called again. Chu, I've located Hua Min's cell phone. Where is it? Chin Chu asked anxiously. Chapter 974. He's on the 4006 freeway. I've already sent people there, but they only found the phone. They didn't see Hua Min, so I suspect that the kidnappers are trying to distract us. Okay, I got it. Chu, have the kidnappers contacted you yet? Under normal circumstances, they'll contact the kidnappers' families within 8 hours to ask for the ransom. Gao Ran asked tentatively. I haven't contacted them yet. Chin Chu knew that he wouldn't say anything. After all, he didn't want to take any risks. What if the kidnappers were angered by the police and killed the hostage? If that happened, it would be too late for regrets. Therefore, he didn't tell Gao Ran the truth. Oh, okay, don't worry. I'll mobilize all the police forces to investigate. We'll also check all the suspicious vehicles on the 4006 freeway. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Chin Chu took out another cigarette and lit it. Then, he stared at his phone. He was waiting for the kidnappers to give him the address. Chin Chu had contacted Wu Zhongxing about Hua Min's disappearance, so he didn't want the hospital to spread the news and suppressed it. He was afraid that the media would be alerted and Hua Min would be in even more danger if that happened. However, other people didn't know, but Hua Xiqian did. He had invested so much money into Southside and established the Hua Foundation. There was no way that he didn't have the right to know. Also, he had spies at Southside. The nurse he planted would constantly report to him about Hua Min. When he received the news that Hua Min was missing, Hua Xiqian was having lunch with a client. President Hua, Dr. Hua is missing. The nurse sent him a WeChat message. Hua Xiqian's smiling face instantly turned cold. What's the matter? He asked. Some say that Dr. Hua was taken away by aliens, and that it's too scary for him to disappear into thin air. Some say that Dr. Hua might be dead. Someone killed him and hid his body in our hospital. Anyway, we can't find him. Coincidentally, the surveillance cameras are also broken. President Wu didn't allow anyone to talk about this, but Dr. Hua's husband already knows about it. All right, I got it. After replying, Hua Xiqian stood up gracefully. Mr. Liu, I'm sorry. I have some urgent matters to attend to. Let's talk another day. After that, Hua Xiqian walked out of the restaurant and drove straight to South Side. Inside President Wu's office, Hua Xiqian and President Wu talked for a while, then walked out with a serious expression. He went straight to the Municipal Public Security Bureau and told them to retrieve all the surveillance cameras outside South Side Recuperation Center. The cameras in the Recuperation Center were broken, but that didn't mean that the cameras outside were all broken. President Hua, it's very difficult to check the cars one by one, the police officer reminded him. If it's not difficult, why would I need you? Hua Xiqian asked coldly. The police officer was deflated and didn't say anything else. Everyone said that Mr. Hua had a good temper and was the most amiable person, but that wasn't the case. Hua Xiqian's attitude today was particularly irritable. Hua Min's disappearance had left him in no mood to do anything. He usually thought that everything about Hua Min was under his control. Now that she was out of his control, he was panicking. If something happened to the girl, he would be sad for the rest of his life. He didn't even dare to imagine how it would feel to never see Hua Min again. Qin Chu drove to the lobby of Seductive Fox. Inside the office on the top floor, Rick looked guilty. Qin, I'm sorry. You asked me to protect Hua Min, and I thought it would be fine on the road. I didn't expect her to be kidnapped in the hospital. It's my fault. It's not your fault. The people who kidnapped her had a very careful plan. We couldn't guard against them. I've already sent people to investigate. Don't worry, I'm sure we'll have news soon. No need. I plan to solve this myself. Qin Chu placed his hands on his knees, his face unusually calm. No, these people are definitely vicious. They won't just let her go after taking the money. Rick was born into a criminal family and had seen all kinds of storms. He also knew that kidnappers were all outlaws. Very few hostages made it back alive. So, Hua Min was in a very dangerous situation. Whether or not she could make it back alive was already a problem. How could she get Qin Chu involved? Rick, I didn't tell anyone about this. I only trust you. I came to you because I need you to help me with one thing. If I don't make it back, remember to sell GK as fast as you can and help my parents immigrate to Hawaii. They'll be under my uncle. What are you talking about? Are you saying your last words? Rick's heart sank. Chapter 975. I'm just telling you what to do, just in case. Before Qin Chu could finish, Rick mercilessly interrupted him. There's no just in case. I believe you'll come back. I'll do my best. Anyways, I have to bring her back. After leaving Seductive Fox, no one knew where Qin Chu went. Rick was in a bad mood. He stood up and opened the window, letting the cold wind blow in. After knowing Qin Chu for so long, he knew how much he cared about his wife. She was the woman he loved since he was young. He lived his life on the edge of a knife, so he might never experience that kind of feeling again. He thought he wouldn't, but he didn't know that fate had its own plan. Boss, I found out what you asked me to investigate last time. The girl's name is Nyelingsi. Her nickname is Cece. She's a photography student at the Academy of Art. Cece. He immediately reached out his finger and gently swiped it across the frosted window. There was a faint smile on his face. Hua Xiqian used all of his connections in one day. However, he didn't find a single clue. He had to admit that Hua Min's kidnappers weren't ordinary people. They were a group of very professional kidnappers. To be able to enter the hospital in broad daylight and take her away without anyone noticing, they were really something. Hua Xiqian was extremely frustrated. He walked out of the police station and got into his white Maserati. After 3 seconds of silence, he suddenly slammed his hand on the steering wheel. He was trying to vent his pent-up emotions. How could they lose a living person like that? What the hell? Hua Xiqian cursed. Then, he suddenly thought of someone. He picked up his phone and dialed. Suyu was in a meeting at Imperial Star's headquarters. All of the department heads were reporting on their performance over the past 6 months. Suyu was wearing a rare light blue suit. It was fashionable and handsome. On his bronze wrist, he wore a $1 million Patek Philippe watch. On his left ear, he wore a dark blue gemstone, mysterious and regal. When he saw Hua Xiqian's call, he didn't pick it up. Instead, he continued with the meeting and put his phone on silent mode. President Su, before New Year's Day, we still have a big movie to release. It's a New Year's drama, and the lead actress is our A-list actress, Miss Jen Tong. I'm sure we'll earn more than 1 billion yuan at the box office. Su Yu listened quietly. Just then, Hua Xiqian sent her a WeChat message. Hua Min has been kidnapped. Although it was only a few short words, Su Yu felt as if he had been struck by lightning when he finished reading them. He quickly stood up with his phone in hand. President Su? All the executives were dumbfounded. Dismissed. Without giving anyone a chance to speak, Su Yu turned around and walked out. His assistant, Shaowen, followed behind him, silently following his footsteps. He walked out of the conference room and immediately called Hua Xiqian. What happened to Hua Min? He asked anxiously. Kidnapped. When? Around 10 this morning. Where? Southside Sanatorium. Who are the kidnappers? I don't know, we couldn't find any clues. They tampered with the hospital surveillance footage. This was a premeditated kidnapping, Hua Xiqian explained. Does Qin Chu know? Su Yu asked again. He does. And he's trying to save Hua Min. But the problem is, no one knows where she is, and we don't know how to save her. Got it. After hanging up, Su Yu sped to Southside and asked every single detail of what happened. Just like Hua Xiqian, he didn't want to let go of any valuable clues. However, based on Hua Min's assistant's deduction, Hua Min must have been taken away by the last patient. Just like Hua Xiqian, he began to investigate all the cars in front of the hospital. However, there were hundreds of cars parked in front of Southside, so it was really difficult to determine which one was suspicious. Su Yu repeatedly looked at the surveillance footage, and finally, his gaze locked onto a black Honda CR-V. Go and find out who the car owner is. Where did the car go? Su Yu immediately asked the police officer beside him. Young Master Su, there's nothing special about this Honda. You didn't make a mistake, did you? The little policeman looked confused. Chapter 976. Just then, someone suddenly shouted, "Boss, they're back." The scar-faced man immediately shouted, "Fatty, bring her back." Boss. The fatty was speechless and seemed to be disappointed. However, he was helpless and didn't dare to disobey. He could only drag her back. Take off her blindfold. There's going to be a good show, the scar-faced man said with a smile. Then, the fatty took off Hua Min's blindfold. Only then did Hua Min see that she was really in an abandoned factory. There were about 8 people in the room. Standing in the middle was the man with the scar on his face who came to her for treatment. There were 7 subordinates beside him. She looked around and didn't recognize any of them. She didn't know who sent these people. At first, she suspected Song Yisher, but she immediately denied it. Because if it was Song Yisher who caught her, she would have killed her immediately. She wouldn't wait for Qin Chu to come. Song Yisher would never hurt Qin Chu. Lady Qin had the same logic. There was no need to involve her son. So later, she suspected Hua Xiqian. She didn't know if he was the one behind it. However, Hua Min felt that Hua Xiqian treated her quite well. He wouldn't allow these people to spread rumors. Fortunately, this fatty didn't violate her. Hua Min had already thought of a countermeasure. Once she and the fatty entered that small warehouse, she would definitely persuade him to untie her. Then, she would use silver needles to deal with him. She knew exactly which part of the body would go numb. Just as she was hesitating, the scar-faced man said, "Hang this woman up." "Yes, boss." Then, Hua Min's body was tied with steel wires and she fell into the air. Then, there was a metal bucket that was a few meters deep. It was round and big. Hua Min vaguely knew what they wanted to do. She didn't want Qin Chu to come, but she also wanted Qin Chu to come. She knew that Qin Chu would be in even more danger if he came. However, if Qin Chu did not come, she might not even be able to see him for the last time. Because the people in front of him were not ordinary hooligans. They were real outlaws. What they did was a crime where they could eat bullets at any time. At this moment, the sound of footsteps approached. Two of his subordinates walked in with Qin Chu. He was also wearing an eye mask. When he arrived, he was welcomed by the scarred man's subordinates. Only then did they bring him in. It seemed like these people were very cautious. Go in. The person behind him gave Qin Chu a shove, and he went straight into the factory. Hua Min looked down at Qin Chu as he walked in. At that moment, he could no longer hold back his tears. She missed him so much that she was about to go crazy. Qin Chu was only wearing a thin black cotton-padded jacket today. The style was very nice, especially on him. His face was always so calm and collected. He was always calm in the face of danger, as if even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, his expression would not change. However, the moment he took off his eye mask and saw Hua Min, his heart was about to break. Qin Chu raised his head and looked up. Hua Min's hands were tied and she was hanging in mid-air. The white coat on his body was already stained and there were wounds on his face. There was dried blood at the corner of her mouth. Qin Chu clenched his fists tightly and looked coldly at the scarred man. Didn't I tell you not to touch her? I'm sorry. Your wife is a little stubborn. She wouldn't talk, so we had to treat her. Qin Chu's eyes turned cold. What do you want? Speak. Qin Chu glanced at them coldly. At this moment, he had already made a vow in his heart. Today, no one here would leave this place alive, because he was going to start a massacre. When the scarred man heard Qin Chu's question, he sneered and threw a dagger at his feet. Here to show your sincerity, stab your chest. Honey, no. Hua Min was finally willing to speak for the first time. She was most afraid that Qin Chu would do anything for her. She knew too well how important she was to him. Qin Chu raised his head and looked at Hua Min with an indescribable heartache. He squatted down and picked up the sharp dagger. Then he slowly pointed the tip of the dagger at himself. Honey, I beg you, don't be so stupid. Even if you do it, they won't let us go. Hua Min immediately burst into tears. Chapter 977. Seeing Qin Chu holding the dagger, he remained silent and didn't make a move. The knife-scarred man sneered and said, "Release the rope." Then with a whoosh, Hua Min quickly slid down from the air and landed in a big metal bucket filled with ice water. She was about to suffocate. Don't touch her. Qin Chu went crazy and wanted to rush up. However, 7 or 8 people stepped forward and held him back. So, you should consider if you want to stab her, or else your wife might turn into a water ghost. The knife-scarred man smiled sinisterly. Without another word, Qin Chu stabbed the dagger directly into his chest. With a splashing sound, blood splattered everywhere. Hua Min was struggling in the bucket, so she didn't see this shocking scene. Otherwise, she would definitely die of heartache. Pull her up. Seeing that Qin Chu had given in, the knife-scarred man proudly ordered. One of his subordinates pulled the rope from the other side and pulled Hua Min out of the bucket. Her entire body was soaked in ice water. Her hair was drenched with ice water, and it was dripping down in drips. When Hua Min opened her eyes and saw Qin Chu, she felt so painful that she almost couldn't breathe. Qin Chu held the dagger in his hand and stabbed it into his chest, but his body was still standing straight and didn't fall down. Hua Min seemed to empathize with Qin Chu's pain. He was in pain, so she was in pain with him. Let go of my wife, Qin Chu said weakly. The knife-scarred man clapped his hands. You're a real man, not bad. As a fugitive, the knife-scarred man had kidnapped many people, but he had never seen a man risk his life like this for his wife. Stabbing a dagger into his chest, that was risking his life. It wasn't just a superficial wound. You bunch of scum dogs. Why don't you just kill us and give us a quick death? Don't play dirty. You'll get your retribution. Hua Min rarely used foul language to argue because she felt it was meaningless. At that time, he couldn't help but curse at the knife-scarred man. Don't worry, I will fulfill your wish and make you a pair of lovebirds. I've done everything you asked me to do. Put her down. Don't go back on your word, Qin Chu said coldly as he stared at the scarred man again. Let that woman down. As expected, he kept his promise. In fact, he also knew that with so many people here, Hua Min and Qin Chu would not be able to escape. After Hua Min was put down, Qin Chu immediately rushed over and hugged her. Honey, I've made you suffer. Qin Chu hugged Hua Min with heartache. Are you stupid? You didn't even hear my voice before you came. What if you fell into my trap? Hua Min kept crying. She didn't think that even though she didn't say anything, Qin Chu would still come. I don't want to take any risks. I can't afford to lose. Qin Chu hugged her forehead and kissed her on the corner of his lips. That sharp knife was still stuck in his chest. What a loving couple. Too bad. They're going to meet the king of hell. The person who said this was a woman. She walked in from the other side of the factory with a tall bodyguard behind her. Hua Min and Qin Chu looked over and immediately recognized this woman. She was Zhou Guanghui, Zhou Guangming's biological sister. After the Zhou family fell, they were chased out of Sea City by Qin Chu. They didn't think that she would actually come back. Ha! Are you surprised to see me? Zhou Guanghui was wearing a mini skirt, black stockings, and a short white mink coat. She was quite pretty. In the past, she even tried to seduce Qin Chu, but Qin Chu rejected her. So it's you, Qin Chu said indifferently. You probably didn't think that I would make a comeback so quickly. Let me tell you, I've been waiting for this day for a long time. You two bitches ruined my family. I want to kill you every single day. Finally, this day has come. Haha. Zhou Guanghui laughed maniacally. She was completely blinded by her hatred. Hua Min suddenly understood why Rick always said that Qin Chu was too soft-hearted and merciful. He also understood why Hua Xiqian always liked to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. It turned out that he would leave behind a disaster for himself. Back when the Zhou family fell, Qin Chu didn't kill them. Now that they were making a comeback, they were putting them in danger. There was a saying that was true. Being merciful to your enemy was being cruel to yourself. Zhou Guanghui took a gun from the bodyguard and slowly walked in front of Qin Chu and Hua Min. Then, she pointed the gun at Qin Chu's head. Tell me, which one of you should die first? Chapter 978. Miss Hui. Don't be impulsive. Let me do this. The scar-faced man smiled as he took the black pistol from Zhou Guanghui's hand. He was about to point it at Qin Chu's head when Qin Chu quickly stood up, grabbed the pistol, and pointed it at the scar-faced man's temple. Seeing this, Hua Min also reacted. In a flash, she appeared behind Zhou Guanghui with a silver needle in her hand. She pointed the needle at Zhou Guanghui's temple because it was a place that could easily kill her. Boss, Miss Hui. His subordinate seemed to be panicking. Back off, let us go. Qin Chu's voice was cold. The scar-faced man didn't feel good. He was too careless and didn't expect the man who was stabbed in the chest with a dagger to be so fast. To think that he could move so quickly and with such godly speed. Seeing that the scar-faced man didn't react, Qin Chu pressed the pistol against the scar-faced man's temple and increased the force. Do you think I don't dare to shoot? Let me tell you, I can take your life at any time. I don't need to take any responsibility for killing criminals like you. Seeing that Qin Chu was ruthless, the scar-faced man was a little scared. Move, let them go, the scar-faced man said. Boss. His subordinate seemed to be unconvinced and eager to fight. While Hua Min wasn't paying attention, Zhou Guanghui stretched out her leg and tried to threaten him. However, Hua Min kicked her in the waist and then inserted a silver needle into the back of her neck. Zhou Guanghui felt a numbing sensation in her body. What did you do to me? She tilted her head angrily and looked at Hua Min. Don't move if you don't want to die. Hua Min and Qin Chu had a tacit understanding. He knew that once Qin Chu subdued the knife-scarred man, he could not become their weakness. Therefore, he also threatened Zhou Guanghui, although he didn't know what relationship Zhou Guanghui had with these outlaws. But what was certain was that these people were more afraid of her and seemed to listen to her. After the threat was successful, the subordinates retreated and made way for them. Qin Chu's chest was already soaked in blood, but fortunately, there was no major bleeding. Otherwise, he would definitely be unconscious. Mian, you go first. Qin Chu glanced at Hua Min. Hua Min nodded and forced Zhou Guanghui to walk towards the door first. Qin Chu followed closely behind with a gun. You bunch of trash. Zhou Guanghui cursed angrily. She was so close to getting her revenge, but now her plan was ruined. The others didn't dare to say anything. Although Hua Min's entire body was in excruciating pain, she knew that this was not the time to fall. She had to walk out, even if it meant risking her life. When they reached the door, the knife-scarred man suddenly pounced back with all his strength. No matter how agile Qin Chu was, he couldn't react in time because of his serious injuries. So, he was immediately knocked to the ground by the knife-scarred man. Qin Chu! Hua Min yelled with heartache. The knife-scarred man pounced over and grabbed Qin Chu's neck with one hand. His other hand held down Qin Chu's other hand. Hua Min was so scared that her heart almost jumped out of her chest. She nervously watched as they wrestled. When the men saw that the fight had started, they wanted to rush forward. "Don't come over, or else I'll kill her immediately." Hua Min pressed a silver needle against Zhou Guanghui's neck. "You bunch of idiots. Get out of my way. If anything happens to me, my godfather won't let you guys off the hook." Zhou Guanghui made a solemn vow. As expected, when she mentioned her godfather, the men didn't dare to come forward. When Hua Min looked over, Qin Chu had already gained the upper hand and was kicking the knife-scarred man. The knife-scarred man covered his chest and kept rolling on the ground. Just then, police sirens sounded. Despicable. "I can't believe you called the police." The knife-scarred man spat out a mouthful of blood and cursed as he lay on the ground, exhausted. Qin Chu was also slightly startled. He turned around and looked at the door. More than 10 police cars were speeding over. In reality, he didn't tell Gao Ran that he was coming. While he was still in a daze, Hua Min saw the knife-scarred man behind Qin Chu take out an exquisite silver pistol. Then he aimed at Qin Chu. "Qin Chu, be careful!" Hua Min shouted with all her strength. However, she was still a step too late. Qin Chu's chest was heavily injured, so his movements were already slowed down. He couldn't dodge the bullet in time. With a bang, the bullet pierced through his body. Hua Min felt as if her heart was being torn apart by something. The pain spread endlessly. Chapter 979. Hua Min suddenly pushed Zhou Guanghui away and rushed over like a madwoman. She hugged Qin Chu tightly as tears blurred her vision. She couldn't see anything clearly. The scar-faced man raised his gun again and aimed it at Hua Min. Bang! This time, it was Gao Ran's gun. This was the scene he saw when he arrived. Hua Min hugged Qin Chu and cried her heart out. Qin Chu still had a dagger in his chest and his face was pale. He had completely fainted. The scar-faced criminal on the ground was holding a gun and aiming it at Hua Min's back. She didn't have any intention of dodging. She only thought that if something happened to Qin Chu, she wouldn't be able to live either. Gao Ran didn't have time to think. Bang! 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 He fired 3 consecutive shots at the scar-faced man. He killed him. Then the police rushed in and subdued all the criminals. "Quick, carry Qin Chu to the ambulance." Gao Ran saw the urgency of the situation and waved his hand. The ambulance that he brought immediately came in to carry Hua Min, but Hua Min refused to let go. She hugged Qin Chu tightly and sat there. "Miss, we're going to carry him up. Don't touch him, none of you touch him." Hua Min was completely dumbfounded. She had lost the ability to think properly. "Hua Min, don't worry, we have to save people. Qin Chu's condition is too dangerous. If we don't save him in time, he'll..." Gao Ran didn't have the heart to continue. He walked over and pulled Hua Min away. Then, he gave the paramedics a look. The 2 men immediately carried Qin Chu into the ambulance. At this time, Hua Min suddenly snatched the gun from Gao Ran's hand when he wasn't paying attention. "Hua Min!" Gao Ran didn't have time to shout. Hua Min fired a shot at Zhou Guanghui. Because she hadn't been trained, her marksmanship wasn't very accurate, so she didn't hit the center point. It was Zhou Guanghui's lower abdomen. "Hua Min! Don't be impulsive, stop it." Gao Ran rushed over and grabbed Hua Min's hand tightly. Firing a gun in front of the police was definitely not allowed. Firstly, the criminals had already surrendered. When they returned to the court, the police would convict them. Secondly, Hua Min was not a police officer. He had no right to shoot at people. This was an illegal act. However, she didn't care about that. While Gao Ran wasn't paying attention, she still did this crazy thing. Gao Ran held her tightly. He watched as Hua Min lost all rationality and went crazy. In the end, he had no choice but to hit her hard on the back of her neck. Only then did Hua Min completely pass out. "Take everyone away," Gao Ran ordered. "Captain, what do we do with this injured woman? We only have 1 ambulance, and we've already saved President Qin and Lady Qin." Gao Ran glanced at Zhou Guanghui, who was shot. She clutched her lower abdomen, which was bleeding non-stop. Hua Min's shot wasn't enough to kill her immediately, but it was enough to make her want to die. If she didn't get resuscitated, she would probably die from bleeding at this rate. Don't worry about it, let's leave it to fate, Gao Ran said coldly. As a police officer, you don't care if I live or die. Do you even have human rights? Even if I'm a criminal, you still have to save me without a trial. Zhou Guanghui was highly educated, so she knew the law very well. Gao Ran turned around and looked at her coldly. Human rights are defined by people, and you can no longer be called a person. You're a crazy woman. Even if you don't die this time, once the trial is over, you'll still be sentenced to death. Hell will be waiting for you. For the first time, Gao Ran didn't deal with the situation from the perspective of a police officer. Instead, he stood as a friend of Qin Chu and Huamin. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people around, he would have shot Zhou Guanghui 3 times and killed her. The ambulance sped all the way to Southside Recuperation Center. Because the first hospital was located in the city center, they would be delayed if there was a traffic jam. For them, time was of the essence. Gao Ran immediately got off the highway and sent the 2 of them directly to Southside Recuperation Center. Then, they were immediately sent to the emergency room for resuscitation. Hua Xiqian and Su Yu rushed to Southside as soon as they heard about the news. In the corridor of the emergency room, Wei Liao, Jiang Xiaowei, and the others were all there. The corridor was filled with people. How is it? How's Huamin? Su Yu was extremely worried. Qin Chu was shot, and Huamin is also seriously injured. They're being resuscitated right now, Gao Ran said sadly. Su Yu's face was ashen. He took a few steps back and leaned against the wall, dispirited. Hua Xiqian kept his head down and didn't say anything. The atmosphere was unprecedentedly heavy. Chapter 980. When Huamin woke up again, it was already 6 hours later. Qin Chu. No, don't do anything stupid. She was still dreaming. Huamin woke up in Southside's VIP intensive care unit. Her body was still very weak. When the nurse saw that she had woken up, she immediately handed her a glass of water with a straw. Huamin drank a few mouthfuls in a daze before she felt a little bit of strength return to her body. She slowly opened her eyes and saw the blinding light in the room and the snow-white ceiling. Where's Qin Chu? Where is he? Huamin's voice was very soft. Dr. Hua, don't worry. Your lover is still in the emergency room. You should rest first. I want to find him. I want to see him. Huamin didn't care about anything else as she propped herself up. Then with trembling hands, she pulled out the 4 in her hand and walked down. Perhaps it was because her body was too weak, so before her feet touched the ground, she fell to the ground with a plop. Dr. Hua, don't be impulsive. You shouldn't get out of bed yet. You need to rest. No, I want to see him. Huamin only had one thought in her mind, and that was that she had to see Qin Chu. Otherwise, she wouldn't give up. The nurse didn't expect Dr. Hua to have such a stubborn side. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to help her up, but Huamin reached out and blocked her hand. Don't worry about me. I have to see him. Then, Huamin used all the strength in her body to get up and walk out step by step. Instead of walking, it was more like moving her feet. Dr. Hua, I'll help you over. Seeing that Huamin was struggling to walk, the nurse rushed over to help her. The nurse rushed up again to help Huamian. This time, she didn't refuse. With the help of the nurse, she walked faster. She could see Qin Chu as soon as possible. Right now, Huamin only had Qin Chu in her mind. She didn't think about anything else. Everyone was stunned when they saw Huamin walk out of the ward. Su Yu rushed forward anxiously. Are you crazy? Do you want to die? You're already like that. Why aren't you resting? What are you doing out here? Huamin directly ignored Su Yu, who was talking to her, and kept walking forward. Her eyes were also dull. Little sister Mian, what you need to do now is rest, Hua Xiqian said, his heart aching. Huamin continued to ignore him. Huamin. Jiang Xiaowei looked at Huamin and started crying. Maybe it was because pregnant women were more emotional, but her heart ached when she saw Huamin like this. The Huamin in front of her was no longer the woman who was calm in the face of danger, and handled everything calmly. She was like an injured child. Her eyes were filled with panic and helplessness. She was so lonely and helpless. She continued to walk forward as if no one was around. She wanted to see Qin Chu one more time. Slightly. Don't cry. They'll be fine. Wei Liao felt bad for his wife. He hugged Jiang Xiaowei and comforted her. Huamin, you really shouldn't come out like this. Don't worry. I believe that Qin Chu will be fine. He doesn't want anything to happen to you. Go back and rest. Gao Ran looked haggard. Looking at Huamin like this, he felt terrible. Where's Qin Chu? Where is he? I want to see him. He's still in the emergency room. Gao Ran didn't dare to hide it from her, so he told her the truth. Huamin suddenly turned around and rushed to the door of the emergency room. She knocked on the door with all her might. She pounded on the door of the emergency room with both hands. She pounded on the door again and again until her palms turned red. Open the door. Open the door. I want to see him. I want to see Qin Chu right now. Hurry up and open the door. I want to see him. Huamin's voice was so hoarse that people who were familiar with her couldn't tell that it was her voice. Huamin, don't be like this. Gao Ran went up to her and pulled her back. However, she refused to leave. She kept pounding on the door, demanding to see Qin Chu. Huamin, she's crazy, Wei Liao said in a low voice. Chapter 981. She's just been suppressing her feelings for Qin Chu for too long. No one knows how much she loves him. Now, she's finally letting it all out. Jiang Xiaowei knew Huamin better than anyone else. Huamin was a classic example of someone who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. To outsiders, she was too cold and calm when it came to Qin Chu. The truth was, Qin Chu had always been a god in her heart, and no one could replace him. Su Yu looked at Huamin and felt as if someone had dug a big hole in his heart. It hurt so much that he couldn't breathe. She was such a calm and collected woman, but at this moment, she was pounding on the door like a crazy woman. In the end, she cared too much about him. It turned out that loving someone so deeply could drive them to this extent. It turned out that Qin Chu was Huamin's only weakness. Su Yu was furious. He strode over, grabbed Huamin's collar, and dragged her back. Then he pinned her against the wall in the hallway. Huamin, wake up. He's still in the emergency room. You can't do anything by pounding on the door like this. Wake up. Let go of me, I want to see him. Huamin only had one terrifying thought in her mind. She had to see Qin Chu no matter what. You can't see him right now. He's in the middle of the surgery. He was shot. We don't know if he's dead or alive. You can't do anything by going crazy. Instead, you'll implicate the doctor who's going to operate on him. Where did your calmness go? Where did the pretentious Huamin go? Ha! Su Yu also went crazy and roared at Huamin. Everyone was dumbfounded. Su Yu. Don't be like this. Hua Xiqian couldn't stand it anymore. After all, Huamian hadn't regained her consciousness and was as smart as a child. Would Su Yu scare her with his angry roar? Unexpectedly, just as Hua Xiqian's hand touched Su Yu mercilessly flung it away. Don't touch me. Am I wrong? If you care about her, you can't let her continue to go crazy. After that, Su Yu stared at Huamin with bloodshot eyes and said, if you still want Qin Chu to be fine, then shut up and go back to rest. Otherwise, even if he survives, I will shoot him to death. You? Huamin was stunned and wanted to say something. Su Yu pointed at the nurse and scolded. What are you still doing here? Take her back. No, I won't. Huamin didn't finish his sentence. Su Yu grabbed Huamin's collar and dragged her back to the ICU. Although Huamin struggled with all her might, she couldn't resist Su Yu at all. Su Yu. Isn't he too violent? Hua Xiqian rubbed his forehead, very conflicted. It seems like our Lord Su has also gone crazy. Wei Liao sighed slightly. Huamin went crazy because he cared about Qin Chu. Su Yu went crazy because he cared about Huamin. This series of terrifying chain reactions frightened the others so much that they didn't dare to say a word. After Huamin was dragged back to the ICU by Su Yu, she was injected with a sedative because she was emotionally unstable. Su Yu watched as Huamin fell asleep after she was injected with the sedative. His footsteps were very light, as if he had been drained of all his energy. No one knew how much his heart hurt when he treated Huamin like that, but he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't bear to see her half dead, so he wanted her to pull herself together. He wanted her to be the fearless, arrogant Huamin that could overcome any obstacle. How is she? Hua Xiqian asked with concern. She was injected with a sedative and is asleep now, Suya replied with a serious expression. Everyone let out a sigh of relief when they heard this. Just then, the door to the ICU opened. When the chief surgeon walked out, his expression was serious. Doctor, how is my friend? Gao Ran anxiously asked. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.